What's up? I just made a thumbnail. Figured I better do that. It literally took like 2 seconds and a screenshot out of this video. So, I wanted to make a stream today, and I wanted to point out that many YouTube content creators are very concerned about their channels, and they have every right to be. I also know that many of these YouTube channels are getting their information about COPPA from another YouTube channel. And no YouTube channel, not even my own, supersedes the information that comes from the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. A lot of people in general, so many people and almost every content creator thinks that other content creators' information is more viable, is more acceptable than the Federal Trade Commission's word directly. This is just not how critical thinking works. All information that they have come from the FTC. So essentially, if you look at where they got their information and you trace it all the way back to its source where it began with the FTC. So I wanted to bring up today, I wanted to now sit down with as many people as who will want to watch and watch through the entire FTC conference on the settlement with Google on YouTube, sitting right here, because it is important. This is all the information that we know for fact. This is what the FTC has provided to us, and it is a publicly released statement for us to understand. And it it's pretty serious, and it's very serious, and it means a lot to content creators. But I felt it was important that I bring you this so that everybody can see where everybody got their information, and to start to separate what is fact from what is opinion and what is speculation. Because right now there's a lot of speculation that is leading people to delete their channels and just jump ship, when I don't think that that's time yet for that. Maybe, but I don't think it's yet. So, without further ado, for anybody that's willing to watch, we're going to watch this now. FTC press conference on settlement with Google slash YouTube. And I will comment on it as well. 170 million. I actually already, and they're lying about this. No, Light Knight, the FTC is not lying. The FTC is the source of the information. They're the ones who gave the order. They couldn't be lying because it's a legal document. And let me go ahead and show you that document right here. This is the actual legal document that was. Let me make sure that this is done, and definitely by versus Google and YouTube. And if we read through here, we find exactly what they did. This can't be lies. This can't be fake lies conjured up by things. This is literally the court case right here, what happened. This is how the legal system works. Is we use documents to document things. Things aren't just like said and forgotten by people, or like wistfully thrown into there. No, that's not how real politics and real law is dealt with. What's up, Spencer? They can't. If they did, imagine if they did just straight lie to everybody all the time. And even one person could prove that they were lying, if even one person could prove a government was lying, straight up lying, and like they had all the proof that that lie was true, how that civilization would crumble. It would that government would crumble because nobody would trust that government. The government has to remain as open as possible. It really does. Anywho, this is going to be the actual, this is what we're going to watch, and I might have to pause it because I don't think it's a press conference, so I don't think I'm gonna have any copyright issues with it. But I will stop it and comment on some of the things that or more like clarify. I don't want you guys to get an idea one way or the other from me. I want you guys to draw your own conclusions from it. Okay. So, again, this is the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission press conference on the settlement with Google slash YouTube in in direct response to the violations of COPPA and the channel owners violating said agreement.
Andrew Smith. There will be questions taken from the floor. Case announcement. The announcement is going to be made by Chairman Joe Simons, and then questions are going to be answered by the Director of our Bureau of Consumer Protection, Andrew Smith. There will be questions taken from the floor. There will be a mic brought around, so please, if you have a question, raise your hand following the statements, and then we will take them from the phones. Following that, we'll be dismissed, and anyone who would like an interview, please let us know. We have interviews in English and Spanish available for anybody who's interested. So thank you very much for being here.
She's
and
delightful.
Let me present Chairman Joe Simons.
It's millions, 170 million. Yeah, they'll clarify it here.
Good morning and welcome to the Federal Trade Commission. Today I am pleased to announce that Google and YouTube have agreed to pay $170 million and to implement strong conduct relief in settlement of an action brought by the FTC and the New York State Attorney General's Office for alleged violations of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, commonly known as COPPA. Let me start by explaining why we allege that Google and YouTube violated our rule implementing COPPA. COPPA requires that certain websites and apps get parents' consent before collecting personal information from children. The definition of personal information includes cookies used in behavioral advertising. The COPPA rule applies differently to third parties serving behavioral ads versus creators of child-directed content. While the content creators are strictly liable for COPPA compliance,
that's us.
Third parties are subject to COPPA's requirements only where they have actual knowledge that the website or service they're serving the ads to is child-directed.
Now, let me clarify what he means by this right here. What he means by this is when he says, when he states that he's saying that YouTube can't be at fault, cannot be at fault for the user-generated content. They're just providing a service where people can put out content, and YouTube can try to do things to limit what goes on and what goes on the ones that they know are there because they have to have actual knowledge. But YouTube, this is where YouTube and the content creators both were a bit fuzzy on the COPPA agreement. Or COPPA, the act.
To put it in context for today's case, YouTube as a general audience platform is not strictly liable under COPPA for the content of the videos uploaded by others to its platform unless it has actual knowledge that the content is child-directed. Our complaint alleges numerous instances in which YouTube and Google had actual knowledge of the child-directed nature of channels and videos on the YouTube platform. This is the basis for the FTC to find that Google and YouTube violated COPPA. Our order accomplishes three important purposes. First, it imposes a substantial monetary judgment of $170 million, with $136 million going to the Federal Trade Commission as a civil penalty and $34 million going to the state of New York. The $170 million judgment is 30 times larger than the largest COPPA civil penalty the FTC has ever previously obtained. It is 3 times larger than any privacy penalty assessed against Google anywhere else in the world. And it is 10 times larger than the civil penalties we have obtained in all of our 31 prior COPPA cases combined. A penalty of this magnitude sends a strong signal about the importance of children's privacy. Second, the order requires the companies to refrain from using or
How about we just get that point home really quick while we're out here, while I have you guys, while we're doing this. How about I show you some of those other accounts? I actually have them right here. Here we have the legal resources of these are the other cases that have all of the other businesses that have all been investigated previously because they violated the COPPA Act. And there's a few that I recognize, like GeoCities. I had no idea about any of these, mind you. I had none of the ideas that a COPPA thing attacked them at all. Or sorry, didn't attack them? I shouldn't use that word. That COPPA caught them. Caught them is the word. Caught them. Because they didn't attack, they caught. But then we have like Hershey's here, Mrs. Fields. I definitely know these. UMG court recordings, apparently. Sony Music Entertainment. These are ones that these are different, like Yelp. I was looking through here musically. I had no idea that any of these were in COPPA violations. I had none. I had not even a single clue that any of these other places were in violation of COPPA. And it shows you that more can happen than what we really see on the surface. Anywho, let's get back to the press conference.
benefiting from the data that they previously collected from child-directed videos or channels. Penalties we have obtained in all of our 31 prior COPPA cases combined. A penalty of this magnitude sends a strong signal about the importance of children's privacy. Second, the order requires the companies to refrain from using or benefiting from the data that they previously collected from child-directed videos or channels. Third, the order imposes additional obligations on Google and YouTube that go beyond the requirements of COPPA. The order requires YouTube and Google to notify channel owners about their potential COPPA obligations. It also requires YouTube to develop a system or a mechanism through which channel owners must identify their child-directed content on the YouTube platform.
Let's go ahead and dive right into this part right here. They'll go into more detail in this later on in the conference. But what he means right now is that YouTube put into place a system and policy changes that we see now that are directly related to the orders given by the FTC. And when we see that, they will explain more on how that is related and much more details in that when the next guy comes up on the stage.
So that such content can be treated in a COPPA-compliant manner. This is particularly significant because COPPA does not require platforms such as YouTube to determine whether the videos posted by others are directed to kids or not. Going forward,
I'd like to comment on how we can see that that is very true. YouTube does not only regulates things on the platform that are strictly against the guidelines, and YouTube has not adequately informed any of its content creators of the COPPA guidelines of the COPPA Act and what creators are required to do, and it hasn't been clear. So yes, YouTube at this point is at fault, and YouTube is required, as stated here, YouTube is required to start beginning to tell content creators exactly how to comply, and they still haven't been clear on it. Hopefully they're going to figure out a way, or I'm not going to speculate. Let us continue.
YouTube and Google will automatically have knowledge of and COPPA liability for all child-directed content designated through this mechanism. In this way, the order prevents YouTube and Google from turning a blind eye to the existence of kids' content on the YouTube platform. Finally, YouTube must provide annual training about compliance with COPPA for employees that deal with the channel owners. None of this is required by law. No other company in America is subject to these types of requirements, and they will impose significant costs on YouTube.
So essentially, anybody who is big enough channel that has somebody directly dealing with media from YouTube and YouTube employees, those employees now have to have training to teach those large channels who have YouTube peeps in on the deal how to deal with that. And I don't know how it relates to us as smaller creators by any means. Let's continue.
This case sends strong messages to third parties like YouTube, channel owners, and the business community as a whole. For YouTube and other third parties like it that serve ads, they can't market their ability to get child viewers on the one hand and disavow knowledge that children are using their service on the other. They can't rate videos as kid-directed for one purpose and then say they have no COPPA liability when they collect information from kids watching those videos.
Okay, I feel like it is extremely important for me to point out what he just said there. He just said that as content creators, we can't act that like we're family friendly and then proceed to believe that we are not in some way violating the COPPA Act, because by being family friendly and by being someone that a child might want to click into and view, that is in violation of the COPPA Act. And the COPPA Act we can go into later, specific wording of the document, but we cannot. But it is. But by being someone who wants to attract an audience that is under the age of 13, that in by itself is violating the COPPA Act, unless you want to be family friendly, and the laws will make sense as it will become more and more clear. Light Knight, they're going to explain more throughout the whole conference, but I can't be the primary source of information. The conference and the FTC has to be your primary source of information, and that is why I'm streaming this, is because I can try to clear up what he's saying, but I'm not putting in my own information, unless I'm misinterpreting things, which I do not believe I am. Let's continue.
Owners. None of this is required by law. No other company in America is subject to these types of requirements, and they will impose significant costs on YouTube. This case sends strong messages to third parties like YouTube, channel owners, and the business community as a whole. For YouTube and other third parties like it that serve ads, they can't market their ability to get child viewers on the one hand and disavow knowledge that children are using their service on the other. They can't rate videos as kid-directed for one purpose and then say they have no COPPA liability when they collect information from kids watching those videos. For those who create child-directed content to upload on YouTube, the message from today's case is that the FTC considers these videos and channels to be websites or online services directed to children under the rule and thus strictly liable for compliance with COPPA. Once our order has been effected for a period of time, the Commission will conduct a sweep of the YouTube platform to determine whether child-directed content is being properly designated as such in order to ensure that the channels themselves are complying with COPPA.
So for one, the sweep, I do not know how, and they do not mention here how that will necessarily take place. But what he does mention how content creators can't. He reiterates there how content creators cannot be kid friendly, and also say that they're not COPPA, that they are COPPA compliant, because they are not. That's by the rules of COPPA, if a child, if a screen name, you know what? How about we go over to that really quick. We go over to one of the points here. Okay, collects or collection, meaning the gathering of any personal information by a child by means including but not limited to requesting, prompting, or encouraging a child to permit personal information online, and then that personal information can let me see if it says it right next to it. That would make it easiest. Personal information means that individually identifiable information about individual collected online is first or last name, a home or physical address, online contact information. That's a screen or username, where it functions as online contact information. Through a username that a kid may use on a comment on your video, that is a direct contact to any YouTube channel. So while the only way if you can keep that from happening, if you have the means to keep that from happening, in this same document that it says in determining whether a website or online service or portion thereof is directed to children, the Commission will consider its subject matter, visual content, use of animated characters or child-oriented activities and incentives, music or other audio content, age of models, presence of child celebrities or celebrities who appeal to children, languages or other characteristics, website or online service, as well as whether advertising, promoting, or appearing the website or online service is directed to children. The Commission will also consider competent and reliable empirical evidence regarding audience composition and evidence regarding the intended audience. So what that means is that if you have, that's where it gets scary, because like there's a large thing that talks about that large amounts of YouTube channels, I should say, have characters and things that appeal to kids who play video games and such. And it's also saying that if you are a channel that you have a child watching your content that is under the age of 13, then you are in violation of COPPA. If you don't know, you're not in violation because you can't have control over that. But if you know, meaning through statistics, through a kid in the chat saying that they are, and you don't do whatever you can to remove that remove that information, that is in violation. A website directed under the criteria set in the fourth in this definition, but does not target children as its primary audience. So this is where it. This part right here is where it pertains to us. A website or online service that is directed to children under criteria set forth in paragraph 1, which is this one, first part we just read, of this definition, but that does not target children as its primary audience, shall not be deemed child directed to children if it, and so this is the gray area. This is that huge gray area that we've been talking about, right? What's up? That this really big gray area where my channel kind of sits, and where it's still kind of gray. Let us look at what it says. It says does not collect personal information from any visitor prior to collecting age information. So the first thing that we would have to ask is, how old are you? Well, we can get around with that. We can get around that by using but we can use that. We can use the mature audience only little button to make sure that that is indeed the case. That any information, then so anybody who has been saying that by marking 18 or plus on your channel still doesn't save you, which is what YouTubers have been saying. This says right there that that's not the case, because you provide the way to say that you can't, that you are making sure you collect age information prior to any other information, including a username, by having that 18 plus in place. Now, YouTube could do more, but that's speculation on my part, and it is not actual fact. We can dive into speculation after. Then we have Part B, prevents the collection, use, or disclosure of personal information from visitors who identify themselves as age 13 without first complying with the notice and parental consent provisions of the COPPA rule. That means that we, as content creators, and anybody who understands COPPA, has to get rid of that information as quickly as possible if it is violated. And we just have to. A website or service shall not be deemed directed to children solely because it refers or links to a commercial website or online service directed to children by using information location tools, including a directory, index, reference, pointer, or hypertext link. So that seems to say that it does not, that that could be broadened. I believe. I think that is where we could hope that it might get changed. If anything gets changed by FTC, that's what we would hope would get changed. That kind of idea. And this, by the way, guys, what we're reading is the stipulated order for permanent injunction and civil penalty judgment against Google and YouTube. If you guys were unsure what we're talking about, this is directly related to us. Now, I wanted to get those out of the way so that when we go back to the press conference, a little bit more is understood. Okay, let us watch more.
Finally, to the business community at large, let me be clear. The FTC takes its obligation to enforce COPPA seriously. If companies violate COPPA, the FTC will take aggressive action, require corrective measures, and use its authority to seek substantial civil penalties. Let me close by thanking our partners at the New York State Attorney General's office, and I would like to thank in particular the FTC staff attorneys, Kristen Cohen, Tiffany George, and Peter McGee, for their tireless work on this case. Thank you, and I'd like to turn the podium now over to Andrew Smith, our Bureau Director. Thank you.
Thank you. So the floor is open for questions. Um, I wanted to reiterate, while you're collecting yourselves for questions, that some of the points the chairman made. First, that this is the first time that we are holding a platform liable under COPPA for content on the platform. Second, this is an historic penalty. The chairman outlined that it's 30 times greater than our next highest COPPA penalty, more than 10 times all of the COPPA penalties cumulatively imposed to date, more than 3 times larger than the largest privacy penalty ever imposed on Google in any country by any regulator. I also wanted to note, it's a sort of a topic near and dear to my heart. It happens that $170 million is roughly the budget of the Bureau of Consumer Protection for 1 year. The agency budget is $300 million. $170 million of that is dedicated to us. So with this action, we are actually reimbursing the Treasury and the taxpayers for our operating expenses for this year. So no need for all of you to thank me now, but you're welcome. And maybe most importantly, that this action is changing YouTube's business model, that YouTube cannot bury its head in the sand. YouTube cannot pretend that it's not aware of the content on its platform and hope to escape liability for COPPA. YouTube is going to be explicitly held liable for complying with COPPA where it has actual knowledge of the content. YouTube is going to be required to seek out that actual knowledge through requiring content creators and channel owners to specifically designate whether they are directed to children. And as the chairman noted, not only can we sue Google and YouTube for compliance with COPPA, but also individual channel owners and content creators. And once this order has been fully implemented, we intend to conduct a sweep of the YouTube platform to determine whether there remains child-directed content on the platform with respect to which personally identifiable information continues to be collected. So, questions?
So let's go ahead and look at what Jermason, just because you don't, let me make it quite clear. Just because you don't know you're breaking the law doesn't mean you're not breaking the law. We have to get that very, very clear here. Because you don't know you're breaking the law does not mean that you are not breaking the law. And vice versa, if you know you're breaking the law and you're spouting it out to the public, that still does not mean you are void of the law. That is not how that works. So, what he's saying is that every channel is liable, and YouTube can't be liable for every channel who posts content to whatever. I mean, what YouTube is a general audience platform. What we are as content creators are people who are posting whatever kind of content we want, and some of it does indeed attract children under the age of 13. And if that is the case, then we need to figure out how to not violate that. Because if they come into a chat, if they come into a live stream, or if they click into a video and they leave a comment with their channel name and their channel where somebody else could go on and leave a comment, then that is where it becomes a violation of the COPPA Act. So it's very important to take into consideration that this is not FTC's fault. This is not YouTube's fault directly. YouTube has its own fair share of blame for it, for sure, which they explain here. Like, YouTube needed to know this. YouTube needed to inform its creators through its terms and conditions long time ago, years ago. YouTube has been violating, and its content creators have been violating the COPPA Act for years and earning money from it because they have mobile ad games that they go to talk to children, say, "Hey, go download this app. It's free, your parents don't mind." These things, and then those kids comment, "Oh, that's so cool. Oh man, I love it." And then when they say, and when they provide, and when they knowingly and and they don't knowingly do it because they were unaware of the COPPA Act, and most people were. I wasn't even aware of the COPPA Act, to be honest. But when I learned about it, the I immediately went to the source of information, which is exactly where we are here now. So we're going to continue this where he begins to take questions from a whole bunch of people, and it answers a lot of questions. And so we'll go ahead and play more of that, and I will be in the chat with you guys.
Yes, Margaret. Oh, microphone.
Oh, thank you. Margaret McGill with Politico. Can you say what prompted this investigation?
Our investigation was prompted by complaints from consumer groups. No, Manisha? Oh, so we had started the investigation prior to that, and we also received complaints. I want to note that we appreciate our partnership with consumer advocates and privacy groups, and that we rely on the good work that they do to help us to enforce the law. Yes, question.
Hi, Ryan Tracy with the Wall Street Journal. This is another 3-2 vote following the 3-2 vote on Facebook. What, in your view, is the impact of having a partisan divide on a couple of these large settlements going forward?
So I hope that business does not doubt our resolve, that this is an historic penalty. It is staggeringly large in the privacy world and in the COPPA world. I am a little saddened, I have to say, by the partisan divide. Personally, I think this is a really strong settlement, and I think that it passes muster under anybody's standards.
I would really like to comment on that right there. What he said is that this is a really strong settlement and that it would stand under anybody's muster. And I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that if people really looked at the law and they looked at the information instead of just getting upset with the FTC, you guys, everybody might have a broader understanding of the issue. But again, content creators aren't. This is why I'm bringing this to you guys, why I'm sitting and watching it with you, because I don't believe that many people have. No matter, even if they've told me they have, that I have a hard time believing that they did, because they don't know some of the information that had been provided um in this. And it's very important for us to all pay attention to what is actually the real problems.
I also, however, appreciate the concerns of our two Democratic commissioners and the concerns voiced in that in their dissents. I would note that both of their dissents indicate that this is a thorough investigation conducted by staff, that the law violations are clear, and that the relief that we get is strong. It's just that they wish there was more of it. Yes, there's a question right in front here.
Thank you, Dave Pereira from AMLEX. You've referred multiple times to the sweep that the FTC will conduct on YouTube channels, and it's an important part of the enforcement of this order. Yet there are 23 million channels that upload a combined 500 hours of video every minute. So, given that amount of content, what kind of meaningful sweep can you conduct?
Well, I think that we have a variety of tools at our disposal to cull through those 23 million channels and in an expeditious way. I mean, this is the way that we generally enforce COPPA, is by actually reviewing content to determine if it's directed to children. We have a variety of factors in our rule that we consider when determining whether or not content is directed to children. And so that's the way we do business. It has been successful so far. I think that I have no doubt that it will be similarly successful with respect to YouTube, despite the large quantity of information on the platform.
Raquel Martin with Nexstar Media Group. Just concerned about the data that was collected, because obviously they're being fined for collecting some sort of data. What happens to that? Is it anything retroactively going to happen to destroy or remove that content from their possession?
Right. So under our order, YouTube is prohibited from using this already collected data for any purpose, even purposes that would be permitted under the COPPA rule. Yes, Margaret?
Commissioner Slaughter raised concerns that this would maybe incentivize content creators to misidentify programming to ensure that they continue to receive revenue from behavioral advertising. Can you respond to that criticism, and how might the FTC combat that issue?
So I think that's a valid concern. There is apparently, we've learned in this investigation and just learned from, in the now information in the public domain, that there are benefits to gathering information and targeting advertising. And so it is possible that content creators will misdesignate. So one response to that is that's why we're conducting the sweep. The second response to that is that there will be consequences for content creators who misdesignate, including being kicked off the YouTube platform. So if content creators are not sincere or forthcoming with YouTube and designating content as being directed to children, there will be consequences for them. We also think that YouTube has strong incentives to police its platform, both to avoid future enforcement actions by the FTC, but also because it's offering this platform to content creators. And if the FTC is bringing independent piecemeal actions against content creators for violating COPPA, that may discourage content creators from posting content on YouTube. So the analogy that I think of, imperfect, is the expression about shooting fish in a barrel. And YouTube is the barrel, and the content creators are the fish. And so it's a place where this content is centralized, and essentially it's easy for us to find.
And that's exactly true. It's very, very easy to find because so many people call their how much people call their content family friendly, and make it where that is exactly what they are allowed to do. They're unintentionally violating the rules of COPPA. And pretty much the only thing about COPPA, the only thing about COPPA is that it's talking directly about the collection of data from individuals under the age of 13 without parental consent. So that means an online username is all it takes. It only takes an online username that child came up with. Even knowing that username can be a problem because it provides a point of contact to said child. And that point of contact without parental consent is the problem here. It has nothing to do with content creators themselves. They're not out to get content creators. They're trying to protect the rights of children, which makes sense. Because right now, if you were to disable all your comments, now I don't want to say do this. I don't think that this would be fun at all, because it's very important to channels like mine to have comments. And most channels are not going to want to get rid of their comments. I agree. We're not going to get rid of our comments. We'd rather find ways to mark our channels as where those children cannot see the comments, and then we'll be able to deal with that. Now, there are problems that YouTube has not dealt with when it comes to notifying creators what to do about their situation if they fall into the gray area where they want to they don't mind an audience, a young audience, but their audience is supposed to be anybody. And when it comes to those, YouTube needs to take more drastic measures to make sure it's helping its content creators from taking the brunt of the fall. As we will see in this conference, is indeed they are indeed planning on going after content creators who are violating, who are continuing to collect information from children after this, and then by collecting of information, it is literally a child commenting on a video that you don't know that they're a child, you don't know, you can't know. And let me be quite clear here. If you if you know if you know or could know that a child is watching your content and you are not doing something about it, then you can be in violation of the COPPA Act by law since 1998, before YouTube existed. The law doesn't necessarily cover video game live streams, which is unfortunate, but YouTube can still do things to change it. But I'm not going to speculate what YouTube can or cannot do. We will find out later inside this conference that YouTube is taking measures that that may or may not work. In my opinion, I don't think they will work, but that's my opinion, and I won't go any more on that. Is that they're going to institute an automated system that will try to determine what is kid friendly and what is not. Let us continue.
Yeah, up in front here, Mitch.
Okay, so the chairman talked about, I'm Diane Bars with Reuters. So the chairman was talking about how YouTube was not strictly directly liable, did I get that right? But the content creators are under COPPA. And you're talking about a sweep going forward. So does that mean that COPPA violations committed by maybe YouTube channels previous to today are not being looked at? Is that, or am I misunderstanding something?
Yeah, well, we're not saying that. I mean, there is no release in this order for other channel owners or content creators. Whether we are bringing actions against individual channel owners or content creators, I couldn't comment on here. I can't comment on any investigations that either that we have them open or that we don't have them open. So don't take that away from what the chairman said. I would say that with respect to strict liability, it's important to keep in mind what the COPPA rule does and what the COPPA rule doesn't do. So what COPPA does is it prohibits the collection of personally identifiable information from children under the age of 12 and under without verifiable parental consent. On the internet, though, you don't know who your users are. So what the COPPA rule more specifically does is where the content is directed to children, we are presuming that the users are 12 and under. So if you are the purveyor of child-directed content, we are presuming that your users are 12 and under and you cannot collect personally identifiable information from them without verifiable parental consent. If, however, you are a general audience platform like YouTube, you don't know what the content necessarily on your platform is. So we, under our rule and under the statute, you are only held liable if you have actual knowledge that the content is child-directed. So that's what we mean when we talk about strict liability for content creators, but a knowledge requirement for a general audience platform like YouTube.
And when we go to look at that, we hear throughout that right there is the whole reason why YouTube is not at fault here. I mean, they could have done more, and they really could have. But that's I shouldn't even like, we all know that they could have done more. But that doesn't make it their fault. Um we as content creators still have the obligation to understand what is the law and how to deal with it appropriately. That should have been that, because we are the ones that are in control of each of our own content. When people know their content is directed to children, they know their content is directed to children. I mean, it's I like all my friends. Don't get me wrong. I personally, as a content creator on YouTube, I have lots of friends here who do lots of different kinds of content. Lots of them are family friendly. Not all of them are, and this is going to affect every single one of them. And but I can't say that there aren't people who didn't claim to be family friendly. And I'm not saying it's their fault either. It's definitely not their fault. I'm just saying that is an example of what they're talking about, is that you can't say that you're family friendly as that all ages can join you, and then pretend that nobody under the age of 13 will actually join your content when you're trying to be friendly enough for people under the age to join to join into the content.
Thank you for taking my second question. Another criticism of the settlement today has been an alleged double standard by the FTC, that it holds small COPPA violators individually liable for the COPPA violations, whereas YouTube, Google, big company, Silicon Valley, no individual executives have been held accountable in this order.
So I differ with that characterization of our COPPA enforcement to date. I do not believe that we treat small companies and big companies differently. With respect to an individual liability standard for a civil penalty, you have to show that an individual has actual knowledge of the violative conduct. That, as a practical matter, is much easier to do in a company with 2 employees than in a company with 200,000 employees. In addition, we typically seek individual liability where we need to fully protect consumers, whether it's to get money or to get an injunction that will actually be enforceable. And so in small companies, what you frequently find is that our concern is that the owner of the company, the principal of the company, will simply shut down and move across the street and do it again. So it's very important to get that individual under order. Also, you don't typically have those circumstances in a very large company. But I would say that with respect to the assessment of civil penalties, we have tried and I think succeeded in being even-handed. And that's why this is such an eye-popping number for Google. So what we typically do is we look at the revenue that was earned from the violative conduct, and we apply a multiplier to that revenue based on the circumstances of the individual case in front of us. That's what we did in Musical.ly. That's what we've done in all of our other COPPA cases as well, at least the ones on my watch. So we have. So I think that we have something of a rubric for assessing civil penalties and individual liability under COPPA, and I believe that we have applied that rubric equally to small and to large companies.
I would like to agree with his statement that they have indeed applied this law as smoothly and as legally as they can. The misunderstanding that is held by content creators and YouTube not actually helping content creators understand the problem more wholly, um, are very um, are very it's very important that um, we know that. We'll continue.
Hey, Ben Brody from Bloomberg.
In all of our other COPPA cases as well, at least the ones on my watch. So we have.
Hey, Ben Brody from Bloomberg. You talked a lot about the knowledge requirement, and in the complaint, there's a lot of detail about YouTube basically touting its young users in its advertising materials. Given the steps that are going to be taken today, what could really prove that YouTube had actual knowledge of of data being collected on child-directed content in the future if this sweep maybe suggested that YouTube should be that YouTube is still collecting this data?
Right.
How could they really be held liable?
So the injunction is going to help because there will be a requirement that they actively inquire about whether or not content is child-directed of the content creators. Other than that, we have the same enforcement and investigative tools that we have always had under COPPA and that we used to prove up this case. So we have knowledge, we have evidence of actual knowledge of YouTube and Google that this was content that was directed to children. We proved that up with various statements which are highlighted in the complaint about, YouTube is the new Saturday morning television, and YouTube is the most popular site for children ages 2 to 12, that kind of stuff. So we will continue to have those tools at our disposal as well. But you're right that actual knowledge can be a tricky thing to show, and it can be very fact intensive. So in this case, if we were to have gone to litigation with this case, we would have had to prove actual knowledge with respect to every single channel and in order to obtain penalties for law violations with respect to that individual channel. Yet another reason why this is such a great number that the staff has been able to put up with this civil penalty. Okay.
So we're ready for questions from the phone, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you wish to ask a question, please press star one. Our first question comes from Tony Rahm with Washington Post. Please go ahead.
You there, Tony? Maybe he has us on mute.
We'll go to the next line. Joan Solzman from CNET. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you for taking my question. I wanted to see if either the chairman or the director had seen the policy changes YouTube announced this morning and whether or not any of those go beyond what's included in the complaint and consent decree.
So I have not. This is Andrew Smith, the bureau director. Our chairman has had to leave for a meeting, but I have not seen the changes announced this morning by YouTube. I would say that over the last couple of months, there have been a variety of articles written about the changes that are being contemplated by YouTube. I would say that some of those are probably motivated by our order, and some of those are motivated by an interest in creating what I'll call a kids-safe zone, whether that be an app or a website where there is curated content for kids that parents can have confidence in. And it seems to me as though everyone, all of the stakeholders, the consumer advocates, the privacy groups, the parent advocates, the FTC, members of Congress, and industry would believe that the most beneficial end state would be general audience platforms hosting kids-safe zones where curated content can be provided and kids won't be subjected to violent or otherwise inappropriate content or advertisements or marketing. So I haven't seen this morning's changes, but I'm encouraged by them, and I do think that, at least in part, they may be motivated by our order and also by our investigation and inquiry.
So there he was again talking about the curated content either by YouTube and YouTube Made for Kids, or in the content that is made by content creators that can be viewed as kid friendly.
Oh, the changes are based on the order? Okay, my staff has just said that she just took a look at the changes, and they are based on our order.
Thank you.
And our next question is from Tony Rahm with Washington Post.
Thanks, guys. Maybe this will work this time. I just want to follow up on something that a few others have asked at this point. I don't see anywhere in the order that explicitly requires Google to police YouTube to ensure that channel operators are appropriately labeling. And second, I can't tell if the commission ever sought to require Google to do that, to implement the kinds of machine learning tools that would do that active, constant policing. So can you talk about that, and whether Google would be held liable in a case in which, a channel informed the company that it wasn't kid-directed content, but it turned out to be?
So if YouTube has actual knowledge that content is directed to children, and it is collecting information about or from users of that content, then it will be liable. So that's just the rule. That's the black letter law. With respect to this idea that Google should have or should implement an algorithm or some sort of a classifier system for reviewing content and putting it in the child-directed bucket, that is something that that may be something that's among the changes announced by Google this morning. Is there anything in Google's announcement, Kristen, that discusses the algorithm? Because okay, so the announcement this morning says that the company intends to find child-directed content using machine learning. We thought about imposing that type of a requirement by order, but ultimately decided against it for at least two reasons. One is that it would be unenforceable, we thought, in an order. So what the order provision would say is, Google, you must implement a system, an algorithm, a classifier, machine learning in order to find child-directed content. Well, let's say that they did that, but we thought it was ineffective, or we thought it was somehow sort of Mickey Mouse. And how would we enforce that in a court? Because we would say they implemented a classifier, but it didn't work. And the judge would say, well, okay, but how do I know it doesn't work? They'll have an expert who comes in who says, no, the classifier does this, that, and the other thing. And we'll have an expert that says the opposite, which is a classic sort of battle of experts, which courts hate in order enforcement proceedings. And there, we think that it may be that the tie would go to the runner, would go to YouTube. The second reason why we were concerned about it is that we didn't want that classifier to be used by YouTube as a shield against our enforcement. So right now the order says you must require all channel owners to designate if child-directed. Then there would be another requirement that says, and you must implement a classifier system to find all the stuff that's not properly designated. So YouTube does that. And then we go in and we try to enforce against them for an order violation or for a COPPA violation, and they say, well, wait a second. We did what you told us to do in this order. We're doing what no one else in the world has to do to comply with COPPA. And we were concerned that that would make it more difficult to bring an action in the future going forward. So those are two reasons why And actually, the third reason is that we thought that an algorithm just might not be effective, and it would be very difficult to prescribe provision requiring an algorithm that could change with technology, change over time for an order that is going to be effective essentially until the end of time. So, so those are all the reasons why we thought that an algorithm wasn't a great idea.
And in many ways, a algorithm probably won't work for YouTube for a lot of different reasons, and it is you know what, I'm not gonna say anything on that because that would be speculation on my part.
In order. But I understand from this morning's announcement, as it was just relayed to me, that YouTube is undertaking that voluntarily. I think that is a demonstration that they have incentives to make sure to police their platform, not only to make sure that it's a safe place for kids, but also that it's a safe place for content creators. Because, like I said earlier, we don't think that they want to be in a situation where we are essentially using YouTube as a way to target our enforcement action against content creators and channel owners.
Thanks.
Our next question is from Anaya Kamenet with NPR. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm wondering what differences might make in terms of user experience. Is it more likely that parents and children using YouTube will be prompted to sign in and get permission, or is it more likely that child-directed content simply will not collect cookies?
So user experience is something that we here at the FTC are quite concerned about. We're also concerned about the effect of this on the content creator community, and that's one reason why, one among many reasons why we have announced recently a review of the COPPA rule to look at this among several other issues under COPPA, not just the platform questions. So with respect to user experience, right now there is an app, and also as of a couple of days ago, I believe, a website for YouTube Kids, which probably mimics what a COPPA compliant user experience would be like. So there is curated content that is specifically targeted to different age groups of children. There is no information collected with respect to that. So that doesn't just mean no cookies and no targeted advertising. It means no comments. And also, I'm looking at the staff, no likes and favorites as well. So at the very least, no comments. So that would possibly detract from the user experience. Other than that, though, we have been told that the user experience is okay on those COPPA compliant websites.
So essentially what it's saying is that anything that is deemed as kid friendly just can't have comments, I get that Federal Trade Commission probably doesn't understand that comments are a huge part of the YouTube community, and being able to comment is a very big part, and YouTube might not even realize that, because because YouTube's algorithm might put too many in the kid compliant area, and not accurately judge which are those that are in that gray area, and it's gonna be a little difficult, and what we'll see is that it refers to, again, the collection of data is through those comments, and talking to kids that are under the age of 13 is the whole reason behind it all.
Now, will those websites continue to have the same quality and quantity of content? That's something that I think remains to be seen. Are there other questions on the phone?
If you wish to ask a question, please press *1. We do have a question from Kirk Victor with FTC Watch.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for taking questions. most of mine have been covered, but one recurring criticism is, how did you arrive at the penalty figures? That was a criticism both in Facebook and again on this. Can you elaborate a bit on how you came up with these numbers?
So, honestly, I would love to elaborate on how we came up with the numbers, but that information is non-public. It involves revenue figures from the various channels that we looked at. I will tell you that the number was revenue based, and it was, as in our other recent COPPA cases, was a multiple of revenue. What we calculated to be the revenue earned from targeted advertising with respect to these channels. Now, keep in mind that YouTube could still serve up contextual advertising, so not targeted ads, and there would be some revenue earned from contextual advertising, and so we tried to not include that in the calculation. We also, keep in mind, would need to show that YouTube had actual knowledge that the content on these specific channels was directed to children. And so, and I talked a bit about the challenges of showing actual knowledge, so that also was factored into our considerations. But given all of that, there was sizable revenue, and it's reflected in this sizable penalty.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, there's a question right here in front.
Hi, Angelique Carson with the International Association of Privacy Professionals, the IAPP. The FTC has launched, I understand, its public consultation process on looking at COPPA and maybe revising the rule. I'm wondering what, if anything, this changes, or does this settlement influence perhaps the FTC's view on what should change under COPPA itself?
So, with respect to this rule review that we've announced, one of the topics that we will look at is whether there might be ways to encourage general audience platforms like YouTube to develop kid-safe zones with child-appropriate content and navigational tools. So that's just one of the topics. Another topic that we're looking at is EdTech, and whether we're looking at consent and parental consent as it relates to educational technology used in schools. So there might be all kinds of legitimate, important reasons to collect information in connection with EdTech in order to serve up the educational services. But how does one obtain parental consent, verifiable parental consent in that classroom context? Another issue that we are planning to look at is the collection and use of audio files, including our existing enforcement policy with respect to audio files that are collected. So what we have said in our enforcement policy is that a voice command, think about like an internet-connected toy, that a voice command can be collected in order to execute the command, but it has to be deleted as soon as practicable afterwards. So we would be looking at that, is that the right standard? And should, rather than just being in a statement of our enforcement policy, should that also be incorporated into the rule? So the rule isn't only looking at these platform issues, but that is one of the questions that we want to review. And this brings me back sort of to the very first point, that the importance of this case for me, in addition to the historic penalty and the strong injunctive relief, is that we are holding a platform liable under COPPA for content posted by somebody else. That's a really big deal. And if you think about all the platforms out there in the world and the economic power that they wield and the amount of content that they host, this is game-changing.
So what they're saying right there is, as you hear that right there, they're talking about how that they're holding the YouTube accountable for the content creators who have already violated the COPPA. And we're talking about like the big people, the really big content creators. Okay, they don't mention who, but we know that children watch PewDiePie, and we know that children watch. I know for a fact that that children of my own family that are under the age of 13 um, will watch MatPat. So they're in by itself, and them being able to comment on the videos with their own accounts is indeed is an unintentional violation, and it would be up to YouTube to be more clear, and it's been up to YouTube for a long time to be more clear to the content creators and provide more tools to allow the content creators to develop solutions to this problem. Because the FTC is not the problem here. The FTC just has a rule that is just trying to protect kids, and that's all that they're trying to do. Is they're just trying to protect kids. That's what the law is about. Is trying to protect the identity of kids, which makes logical sense. And then the problem here lies in the middle ground of the people who are not 18 plus and who are not only made for kids. So this middle ground is where a majority of creators lie, where they just they don't fit in either of the categories. They have a lot of 13 to 17-year-olds who watch their content. And this is where YouTube needs to come in and really help these content creators, myself being one of those. But this isn't about me. This is way above me. This goes deeper, way deeper than any one channel. So so YouTube has put into action, or going to put into action, an algorithm of sorts that will determine what is kid friendly or not. And as they stated that they saw problems with that. I foresee problems with that even. I'm not gonna speculate on what might happen with that. Let us continue.
Okay. More phone. Oh, I'm sorry. More phone question. More questions from the phone.
We do have Kelsey Sutton with Adweek.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I wanted to ask if you could walk me through what this sweep of YouTube conducted by the FTC is going to look like, when you anticipate to begin that sweep, what it's going to entail, and how long you sort of anticipate it's going to take.
So the order includes a period for implementation. So we would not start looking at, because it's gonna take a while for YouTube to canvass all of its channel owners to determine, for them to obtain that self-designation of child-directed content. So there is a period of time during which YouTube has to comply with the order. Once that compliance period is completed, we would begin our sweep. With respect to the length of time, the number of sites reviewed, things like this, that is information that I don't think I can comment on. It would be non-public investigational information. But we do, looked at in context, we do a lot of these sweeps. Frequently, we conduct these sweeps in conjunction with law enforcement partners in states and elsewhere. And we recently did a sweep on robocalling that was announced earlier this summer. So sweeps are something that we do routinely, and it does take some period of time to develop an enforcement action. But I'm thinking we can do it relatively expeditiously. Are there other questions on the phone?
There's one final question. Joan Slothman with CNET.
Hi, yes. Thank you for taking another question from me. I actually wanted to ask a question also about the sweeps. There was language in describing them initially about how the FTC is prepared to take aggressive action or corrective measures should they find noncompliance. Can you characterize what sort of measures are on the table and what about them would be aggressive?
Well, with COPPA, COPPA is one of those few privacy rules that we enforce that has civil penalties. So when we talk about aggressiveness, we are typically talking about civil penalties. And again, I know that there may be some difference of opinion about this, but in my judgment, this is an eye-popping civil penalty. And again, it represents a multiple of the revenues realized from this practice. And so I think that we would have strong penalties in future cases against content creators and channel owners as well, particularly when we would have a situation where the channel owner was specifically asked, "Are you child directed?" and the channel owner said no. So when we see those facts, we're going to have to evaluate them. You know, every case is different. We'll have to evaluate the facts that we are given, and we'll have to evaluate them in context. But if I'm a channel owner, those facts don't look so good for me, I think. Are there other questions? Yes.
Sure.
Oh, we have.
I'd like to point that out too. What he just said is that is totally true. Is that that doesn't look good for any channel owner, because we can't say that we've never seen children under the age of 13. I literally timed out somebody. They might have been lying. They honestly might have been lying. They might have been just trying to provoke something. But somebody came into another stream just last night, and as I saw it, they said that they were 9 years old, and they tried to give their name. And as soon as I saw 9 years old, I immediately took out that comment, deleted it as quickly as I could, because I knew it was in COPPA violation. And I did what I could. I did what I reasonably could using the powers I had at my disposal. So we do see it. We do see that happen. We do indeed see that happen. It's not the first time I've seen it happen, and that was on a channel that is not deemed family friendly. That channel did not see themselves as family friendly. And they still saw that. And they even looked at it, and then agreed with my decision after having looked at it, because they also understood that.
We have two in the room, and then we'll.
There's no further questions here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much online.
Yeah.
Okay, Margaret McGill with Politico. I did want to ask, you mentioned with the rule review a question of whether there may be ways to encourage a general audience platform to develop a kid-safe zone. I know some lawmakers had urged in the FTC settlement here that the agency require YouTube to move all kid-directed content to the YouTube Kids platform. Was that ever on the table? And if not, why not? Was that something under consideration?
So, we are encouraged by, we think that the recent announcements by YouTube to beef up YouTube Kids, but also to have the YouTube Kids platform not just live in an app, but on the website, that those are encouraging. And we are really encouraged by platforms that are developing these kid-safe zones. I would say that from a COPPA perspective, from a privacy perspective, it doesn't matter whether the content is in YouTube Kids, on youtube.com or youtubekids.com or the YouTube general audience website. If it's child directed and YouTube has actual knowledge, then it is then they are going to be liable under COPPA.
So as we heard right there, if it is on any part of YouTube, and this is one of the scariest bits, is that YouTube thing. Excuse me. No, that's speculation. I won't say that. YouTube has a YouTube Made for Kids website that is freely accessible that kids should be going to. But YouTube also has its freely accessible main site, youtube.com. And because they're both freely accessible and people can watch videos without logging in and verifying their age by saying that they're over the age of 13, by saying that they're over the age of 13 before they can even enter into a place where they have the ability to comment, then that is a violation because they have free access. Anybody who, even if they don't have a YouTube account, can still join in, can still present personal information because it is a free and open platform, which YouTube is desperately trying to maintain. It would appear, a free and open platform for as many content creators as possible. And that would seem to be what they're trying to do with their algorithm method of dealing with this situation. But it is definitely a huge issue. The it is the thing about this whole thing is that this is indeed going to affect content creators as a whole, and it will be it's going to be heavily up to YouTube to implement changes that really cover their content creators is what it seems like it might need. um but that's just speculation. I will go into what I personally think after this conference, which we are almost there. Let's go ahead and finish up the last question or two.
I also would say that there is a lot of content on YouTube Kids that is what's referred to as family friendly, and it's not necessarily kids content. It's historical content or cooking shows or the I Have a Dream speech or the moon landing, or there are things that are kid friendly that are sort of kid ready, that are not necessarily what we would think of as kid oriented.
And that is another thing that we need to take into account. That's mostly the gray area that we're talking about for most content creators, is that most content creators are kid friendly, that are not actually made for kids. And that's where most content creators fall into, is that little gray area. And that's really where they want YouTube to help their creators the most.
Hi, Ryan from the Wall Street Journal again. What is the status of the DOJ's filing this settlement in court?
So you'd have to, if you want comment from DOJ, you'd have to ask DOJ. I will tell you what our statute requires. So this is our statute, is the FTC Act. If we are going to seek civil penalties, this is Section 16 of the FTC Act. If we're going to seek civil penalties, we have to refer the case to the Department of Justice. And if the Department of Justice doesn't act within 45 days, doesn't file the case itself within 45 days, then we can file it. So that's what happened here. We sent it to Justice for review. Justice did not act on it, returned the case to us, and we filed it. Anything more than that, you'd have to ask Justice.
Hi, Stephen from CBS News. Is it safe to say if YouTube is informing channel creators that they need to be COPPA compliant, they go through the training, moving forward, content creators are more at risk than the actual platform at being fined?
Content creators are always at risk of being fined because they're and channel owners, because there we have a situation where we have a website or an online service that is directed to children. So there, in the general audience platform, we still have this knowledge requirement that we have to prove up. So there is, I think, in theory as well as practically speaking, generally a higher risk for channel owners and content creators who, after all, are creating this content and know intimately whether or not it's directed to children or not.
And again, we look at that right there. But we look at that right there is that if we know that there are children in the streams the or in the comment section, if we know or can know that children are there, that is what is in violation.
I'm Brody from Bloomberg. I guess I better make it good. What's your level of concern about platforms with actual knowledge of data collection of child-directed content out there? Is this the end of the war or the first battle?
Well, it's clearly the first battle, right? Whether it's the only battle, I don't know. My hunch is not, but that, because there are a lot of platforms that may be in this same space, and we don't necessarily think of them. So people often speak of YouTube as being sort of sui generis. It's the only one of its kind. It's the biggest and it's the baddest, and I think that that's probably not right. If you think more broadly about platforms, could it include over-the-top television? I mean, YouTube's there, and what other kinds of platforms that host this kind of user-generated video content? And there are a lot of them, and there are new ones every day. So I think that it is clearly the first battle. Would that it were the only battle and that everybody gets the message. But from our perspective, we're not going to be resting on our laurels. That this is this is a new front in the COPPA enforcement world. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Director Smith, for such great answers. And if anyone has additional questions, please come to us. And again, thank you to the staff that put this all together and to everyone covering it today. Okay, it's a wrap.
And that is indeed the facts, the FTC press conference, and what we know, what we actually know, what is not said, and it's more than what YouTube has told content creators, but it's less than what other content creators have said. Now, the point of me making this video was to entirely and wholly present the facts that provided by the FTC. And now we can go through. I'm going to address some of the issues brought up into the chat throughout this stream, and some of them include why don't we blame who's to be liable for the kids after COPPA goes into effect? Who's to be liable if the child lies on their on the page that says that they're over the age of 13? Well, if the user lies, the user is liable. As a content creator or as a general audience platform, they have done their job to make sure that they have at least put an age barrier. And if the user lies or the user is under the age of 13, then it is their parents who are then liable for their child. And that has effectively removed the entire liability of the argument from all content creators and YouTube general audience platform. Another argument is why the content creators? Why isn't YouTube dealing with this directly? YouTube had to pay $170 million in regards to how much content creators had violated the COPPA agreement. All it takes to violate the COPPA agreement is to have actual knowledge of a child under the age of 13 who comments on a video, or actual knowledge that a child under the age of 13 might click on your video, or if someone is to claim that they are in affect someone who can attract a child under the age of 13, being kid friendly. That is another problem made. That is another um, part of that. Then there's another huge issue that most people have, is that what happens to all the content creators that are in between, in that gray area, who don't want to use the login wall of YouTube, where they have to mark their content as 18 plus, so that they have that age barrier, and that age barrier in place, and who don't want to mark their video as only made for kids, where they can't have comments and have less ad revenue, and they want to sit there comfortably in the center. That is where YouTube is going to end up using their algorithm. In my opinion, that will not work. It will likely mark things the wrong way. And if they don't change how that's going to come out by the time the FTC does their sweep, then I believe a few, if not a lot, of content creators are going to get fined. Not a lot. Probably some larger content creators are going to get fined. Fined from that situation, and by doing that, that'll scare a lot of content creators off of the platform. And in doing so, YouTube will have realized a mistake and try to do something. But that's speculation on my part of what may happen. What another piece of speculation and an idea I have for YouTube is to implement a login wall that, like the 18 plus, there will need to be another identifier for a 13 plus. One that says, I agree that I am over the age of 13 plus, and I agree that I will suffer the penalties for lying here. And by doing that, whoever signs that and acknowledges that is at fault. It cannot be the fault of the content creator for that, not legally. So it is important. It is not the fault of FTC for having the law that says you can't contact children under the age of 13, because really deep, that's pretty much the whole thing is, and it makes sense. Honestly, that makes sense. Why? I don't even know why. Why, personally, in my opinion, I don't know why people would argue against the law, because the law to me makes sense. When we look at the direct law given to us, like, this is the actual case written against the people of the state of New York v. Google and YouTube. When we look at this law, we see what was caused, what troubles were caused, and it's not wrong. It is a solid case. It is a solid case that deeply affects content creators, including myself. And it is a negative effect too. But but we still have to understand that we are still at fault. We can't assume that content creators are not at fault. I personally have seen content creators being at fault. Many. And I would think more so than others, very large content creators. And I'm thinking about content creators that I don't watch, that are specifically directed at children. Like, I don't want to get into specific channels. But there are indeed channels that are specifically targeted to children and have children and child actors that have comments from children and from children. Even if it isn't every single content creator, it's still a thing that happens. So when we look at the press conference and we look at the information, the if you have it, if in my opinion, what YouTube could do is they could put in a login wall that just makes it where kids have to mark if they're 13 or older. That is not fact. That is not what YouTube was planning on doing today on November 20th, 2019. But it might help them. And in my opinion, I don't think that YouTube content creators are going to stay around or continue to make content if YouTube relies on an algorithm. YouTube relies on an algorithm to deal with the situation, then YouTube will see a huge problem. Is going to see a huge problem. That is my opinion. That is not fact. I have to make that clear. That what I am saying right here at the end of this video is my opinion and speculation, not fact. No content creator on YouTube, not even me, supersedes the information we just watched. The information we just read in the legal documents. This information supersedes any information you can read, because it is the source of all information. This is the reason I felt it monumentally important that I made this video today, because this video was about facts. And they're scary facts, and they affect us, and it's a huge deal. But content creators are assuming that they're not at fault, and that it's the FTC is just out to get them, or YouTube sucks. They're not taking blame. They don't want to accept blame. They just assume that their world is fine and nothing else matters. And that is where the problem is. We need facts. We need content creators to know that YouTube can help content creators with this. But it is not YouTube's fault 100%. We have to accept that we are also to blame. The FTC is not to blame. They're just following the law. And I agree with the law 100%. They're just trying to protect children, which aren't we all? I mean, isn't that something we kind of all want? Really? Like, I don't see how them trying to protect children goes against content creators. Because when we look at this law here, most of it doesn't talk about necessarily just content creators. It talks about things as a whole. Information as a whole, from advertisements and how other businesses can be affected. And one of the other problems people have is, well, all these other companies are violating this law too. Why aren't they in trouble? Well, they very well might be. If we look right here, we see all of these other COPPA violations that they have had to take in, that they've had to deal with. And some of them are people we recognize. Hershey's Food, Mrs. Fields, UMG Recordings, which if content creators, you probably know of UMG Recordings. I do, because they've copyrighted most things that go on my channel. And Sony BMG Music Entertainment. This is Sony, a huge company. These are all COPPA violations that other companies had to deal with. And as they said in this FTC conference, they're not done. So, in my personal opinion, what we as content creators need to do is we need to talk to YouTube about just creating that login wall. I don't see what the problem really is, Because then if YouTube just allows content creators to choose if their content is kid friendly or not, and then anybody who marks their content as kid friendly won't be behind the login wall, therefore they will be more open, they will get more coverage because less people want to be there, therefore they'll get reduced ads and no comments, but they'll get more revenue because of the contextual ads, and there will be less competition for that ad space of contextual ads. Then the personal ads would go after the login wall, that would and that would allow anybody to comment. Anybody to comment on a video. I mean, you need an account to comment anyways. So you can't comment with guest 123. You have to have an account to comment. So if the account is marked as over the age of 13, as we discussed prior, if there's an account in place, then that becomes then, and it says that account is over the age of 13, then by that point in time, literally it is impossible for a court of law to see YouTube or its content creators in violation of that. If the person that does not have an account, that has not verified that they're over the age of 13, cannot see the video or see the comments or comment on the video or leave likes and favorites if that's a part of the thing, then they cannot be in violation of the COPPA. And so it is not about it's not about trying to get back at creators. And what I see in the world today is people taking everything personal, taking it personally. I myself take too many things personally that I see. But that is a problem I think we have as a society today, is we take everything personally. This is not a personal fight against content creators. This is not an attack on content creators. This is an enforcement of the law. And it is as the director stated earlier, that anybody who just reads this law, he believes that anybody who reads this law will and knows what it means should be on board with it. And I agree with that, because essentially what the law says is that a child cannot be given the ability to leave personal information. If a child is given the ability to leave any personal information, that can be in violation. That simple thing is, if a child has the ability to leave information, that is a violation. So what needs to happen is that that child needs to be removed from that ability to leave information. That doesn't mean that childs can't watch things. That doesn't mean anything. Anybody can still mark their content as for kids. And people want it both ways. They want to be able to communicate and have that, and be able to obtain that personal information without parental consent, and then also say that it's that they don't have to worry about then that they are not in violation of COPPA, which is just not true. By definition, if you know that there's a child that you're talking to, a child that is under the age of 13, then you have actual knowledge of a child that is under the age of 13 in the area. You did not present a way for the child to know that the content is not meant for them prior. And that makes me think about gaming ratings. You notice when you watch on advertisements, when a mature game comes up, it's mature audiences only, and it's an audio cue and an ESRB rating in the front. Now, I don't want to say that that's sufficient enough, but it would seem that that's how advertisements for things that kids shouldn't see on just normal TV are actually can do that and not cause any problems with this COPPA. I would think, and I'm not quite sure of how these advertisements relate, but that's what I would see as as a way to make sure that I didn't actually realize prior that that might be a way to help enforce the COPPA. Ashkowski, I am 100% in view of following the law. And if you don't like a law, we use laws to change those laws. And in my mind, this law is good. When I read through this, when I read through this order, this Federal Trade Commission and people of state New York via Google and YouTube, this makes sense. I'll even give you guys this file. The law makes sense to help children. Like it is not up to the FTC at this point. It is not up to the FTC at this point to do something about this. The FTC in this conference, we heard that they are trying to review they're trying to review how things work to help more content creators. They stated that in this conference. But it is still not up to the FTC at this point when YouTube can do things to help ensure that that's not the case. Twitch, for example, already has implemented a system that has already been in place where you can't sign up for an account unless you acknowledge that you're over the age of 13. Again, if you lie, that doesn't matter. If that doesn't matter to Twitch because they have provided that wall. The lying is not at fault of Twitch or the content creators if a child lies about it. So that cannot be used as an argument. So then if you can then set your chat to be where the only information you can collect from a child. And again, let's be clear. It's not information about a child that is the problem. It is information coming directly from a child, which it is actually in here. It is actually part of this. It is a communication in here. In one of these paragraphs, it says that it is important. This clear and conspicuous thing is what I meant by the ESRB ratings. So what is important to take away is information from kids that is the problem, not information about kids. So if it is a child that is able to say something, that is what is the problem. So, and that's literally what the law is trying to prevent. So by changing the law, even a tiny little bit, even changing the law a little bit is essentially making it more easily to collect unintentionally information of a child under the age of 13. It is by changing the law at all. I don't even see how they can do that. I don't see how the FTC can even change the law to accommodate us creators as gaming content creators. And that comes from me being a content creator. I am unsure how the FTC can review it to allow content creators to still maintain their ability to have comments and full advertisements without children being able to click on it, other than if YouTube implements a change itself, which is not up to us content creators to do. We would have to put an ESRB rating at every single time, and then once we have and then an operator shall not be considered to have collected personal information if it takes reasonable measures to delete all or virtually all personal information from a child's posting before they are made public. Also to delete such personal information from its records. So if we can do that, which we don't have the tools to do, and we can't have the tools to do because we don't have access to the programming. We, as content creators, we really need YouTube to create a login system. They're gonna have to deal with not being as open as free as a platform, which is gonna upset so many. It's gonna be so many problems, really, with if we don't do that, and there's gonna be so much money lost in ways for people, and some content creators are gonna have to go on the other side, where they'll have to make some videos that are, some videos that aren't. But it's not gonna work. An algorithm is likely, as we all know, not going to work out for YouTube, because already their algorithms tend to not be the hottest. No, they're not all bad. I think a lot of them get bad raps because people misunderstand them, like the notification system, for example, where it's based on how many times you click on the notification. It's not based on just you get every notification of every person you have the bell to, which, granted, it's a silly system, but it's not, there's really no point to argue about it. Really just talk to them about how to fix it. And that's what we need to do about YouTube. We need to talk to YouTube about how to fix this for content creators, because as it's going right now, it's not going to work out for YouTube, I don't think. And this is, again, speculation by me, not fact. What is fact is in this paper. What is fact is in the FTC conference. What I say as a content creator, what anybody says online that is not part directly from the FTC or from YouTube, which YouTube hasn't given us all the information, is still not the sources of information are the people that are directly involved, who were directly involved with the legal case, which is the FTC and YouTube. And YouTube has not been too forthcoming with telling us content creators all the information we really need to know, which is, again, why I brought it up to you guys, why I believe it is monumentally important that I came and brought the facts today. Again, what we looked at today was we looked at all the facts, and then we dived into what maybe YouTube could do. And I would like to clarify one more time, as the arguments have been brought up over and over and over again, that it is if the child is lying about their age on a form, that is not the content creator's fault. It can't be, nor can it be the general audience platform's fault. It cannot be. It is then the parent's fault or the child's fault in some way. I don't see how it's going to be the child's. I think it would just be the parent's fault. But my point is that it wouldn't be the content creator's fault. So don't worry about it. Then the another argument is that the FTC is just going to throw all videos, no matter what, even if they're marked 18 plus, into the kid-friendly section. I would argue that is just silly. If you mark your videos as 18 plus, you effectively put a login wall where the legal document says you need to. You can take reasonable measures to detect the age before collecting any other personal information, including a username by having a login wall that says that they are over the age of 18 plus. That is an effective login wall that I am certain, not being a lawyer, but I am certain would defend you in a court of law if somebody tried to mark your content as kid friendly. Because even if they did, a kid would still have to log in, still have to say that they are over the age of 18, and they would still be liable 100% for that. Their parents would be liable. Excuse me. Either way, it would not be the content creator's fault, nor YouTube's fault. Moving on, then that leaves us one spot left. Or rather, actually, before let's get to what's made for kids. Content that was made specifically for kids that indeed are going to see a huge problem with comments. Their comments will be removed. The cookies and data taken from them, which is a YouTube thing, will be reduced. And the ads that they get will be purely contextual. That will not be targeted. They will be things probably about the video. Purely and that's going to reduce the amount of content that can be watched on the free side of YouTube or the non-login side of YouTube. If they implemented a login, that would indeed affect them. In my opinion, I think that because there are so many creators that fall on the other side of that line that want comments and want that interaction, is that those that choose to be made for kids and choose to give up their comments will actually see not much change due to the fact that they will see a rise in they will see a reduction in people trying to also make content and compete for viewers' attention. And finally, it leaves me to the middle point. The middle point here is where most content creators lie. In between the point where YouTube, in between the point of 18 plus and not being monetized because you're over the age of 8, because everything's over the age of 18 and all that, and you're for the general audience, but you don't you don't mind kids being there, but your audience is just supposed to be everybody, and you just didn't even know that you weren't allowed to have people under the age of 13 there. I didn't know until all this COPPA stuff came in to effect, and I had seen it. I still saw it. Again, I saw it last night. Not in my streams, but I did see it, and I dealt with it in accordance with the law as reasonably as I could, and that's where we have a huge problem for content creators, because YouTube believes that it can use an algorithm to determine whether or not content in here is going to be kid friendly or not. And even if it does, and if it does a good job of it, FTC will still come through on a sweep January 1st next year, where they will deem themselves that on what is publicly available on YouTube, if it is either deemed as kid friendly, or if it is deemed as kid friendly, or if it is deemed as not for kids. And that is a wide definition that they can use. They can use a very, very large definition for that. It is very scary to think, because they can do a lot with that definition. Because I don't know about you, but I've seen kids click into all kinds of videos. Ones that are definitely not meant for children. And sometimes if you're playing a game that's rated M, you will still see children under the age of 13 try to join those. So the broad definition that the FTC has for that is indeed going to be a problem, but all games are all games are going to be interesting to kids. Every game is. I mean, why wouldn't they? They're games. I mean, if we're playing a game like Super Mario Maker, yeah, sure. A lot of adults like it, but so do kids. I mean, they are games. To say that games aren't for kids is silly because we played games. I played games when I was under the age of 13. I was playing games a lot at that time. In fact, after I turned 13 is probably when I slowed down playing games for a while, and then I continued playing games in my 20s is when I picked games back up. And so yeah, kids are going to be interested in games. To say that kids wouldn't be interested in games is silly. And so we do have to take that into account. It's not going to change for video game playing. When I'll see it. You said B1. B. Which page? I think I missed it already. Or 2952? No, that's not it. What's up, Twisted? Info, not the creator. No, Paul, see, that's the problem. Google is not taking the information of when a child says, "Hi, my name is blah 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 and I'm 4 years old." Did you read that comment? Like, as a content creator, do those words reach your eyes? Do they register in your brain as words, and you understand them as words, and you understand them to mean that what you are seeing is true, and that child is under the age of 13? That action is actual knowledge that a child is commenting or leaving personal information on a thing. I don't see how you can blame YouTube for a child. I don't see how they can necessarily blame a content creator either. And even honestly, they can't really blame a content creator either. And that's where this gray area lies, is that they need to find a way for content creators to have that control. No, they don't, Paul, because right now the public is free. um the public is free to the public is 100% free to watch any video on YouTube. And that's the problem, is that they need a login wall for anything that is not made for kids or kid friendly, so that way that the things that are available to the public without the login wall would be like Martin Luther King's speech to Blues Clues videos. Those would be things that are available to the public that you don't need to log into to see. And then other things that you want to comment on or videos you want to watch would be like this. Or maybe they could implement a system where you can't see comments on videos but you can see the video itself. And then that would also maybe do it. And I mean, you can't see the comments on the videos unless you have an account of that says you're over the age of 13. Again, before anybody brings up the argument that that parents can lie and kids can lie, again, that is the fault of the user, not on the creator or the general audience platform. They B1. You're talking about page 1? Like, which page? Which page? Children's online under 12 commission rule requires privacy notice. Parents get parental consent. Allow parents delete established theory. Survey website. They showed collected personal information. 9% of the Appendix B, page 1. Oh, you're saying B1 this way. I don't know this stuff. Okay. The survey involves websites directed. If we serve team million, anytime you question, please don't have to ask. Determine whether a site is primarily directed. It should have at least 2 of the following 3: subject matter, presentation, interactivity. Mixed audience has a designated primarily directed with the same URL. Okay? That's it. Yeah. Many times you should be able to tell whether site primary directed. Yeah. I don't see what the problem is. Subject that is a matter. This is stuff we are already more than aware of. I don't see what the problem is. I'm not arguing that this is the case. I get it. Yeah, no, it includes a wide range of things. I'm not arguing that this is the case at all. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. 100% that this is indeed what they're going to go after, Ashkowski. I'm not arguing that. That's not the point of this. It is crappy that they're going to, but the law makes sense of why a kid's going to click on this stuff. Like, that's what's gonna happen. And this doesn't even include half of the things that a kid will actually click on. A kid will still click on more than this. So they're being lenient, really, if we're thinking about it. This list is lenient on what kids are gonna click on. This is being very, 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 very lenient on the terms of what kids will click into, because they're going to click on almost anything, and pretty much anybody in the government could say that. Again, we can't change this, and what are we going to do? Just not do things that are appealing to children? Like, we can't not do things that are appealing to children. That makes no logical sense. Things are always going to be appealing to children. If the fact that you are trying to keep something away from a child makes it appealing to a child. So you can't, in no way can you do anything that can't be viewed as, in some way, as that. But what do we do? What do we do to change this? We can't change what is appealing to children, because that's essentially, by trying to change the law, you're trying to change what is appealing to children. What we need to do is we need to have something in place that takes the option out of the hands of children, is what we need to do. We take the option out of the hands of children by putting in a login wall or something that says that they have to consent to saying that they're over the age of 13. And again, before the argument is brought up that the kids can lie, it is then the users and the parents' responsibility, not the content creators, in that legal argument. No matter how you phrase it, that still would be a parent's responsibility, not the content creators, if the child lies about their age. Now, if the child comes into your stream or onto your video and says, blah blah blah, I lied on my thing, and I lied on my thing, and now I'm still blah blah blah, you as a content creator legally have to get rid of that information. That is still something you would have to do. But the fact, if a child is lying to you and saying that they're over the age of 18 or 13, that is not your responsibility until they have presented information to make you think otherwise. And that's the thing, Ashkowski, is that they legally can't. How can they legally sue someone whose content they cannot collect information from children? Is that's what I'm misunderstanding what the argument here is, because I don't like the problem here is not what is being made as content. The problem is the collection of information that any content might unintentionally collect from children. So again, I don't see how, like, they're being lenient with this subject matter, saying it's kids jokes, music, kids games, video, computer games, children's TV shows, cartoon characters, sports, stories, toys, children's books, fantasies, children arts and crafts, pets, products primarily purchased or consumed like kid snack or food. That's being lenient in my mind. That is being lenient in the sense that there's more than that kids would be attracted to. A lot more. Teens are attracted to vaping. They're not supposed to be, and it's a crisis. It's a problem, mostly because they're not supposed to do it. So because they're not supposed to do it just makes them want to do it more. Look at the presentation. Part 1, presentation. Language short enough, understandable. Culture phrases such as kid only. Okay, but I'll read through the rest of this and I'll comment on it. Whether visual okay. Using a host of characters, okay. Age of okay. When advertising, okay. Audio content, interactivity, okay. I bring up the same point I've been bringing up. The problem here is the fact that the kids can even talk and make comments on your video. Despite what is going on in your video or how it's clickable or anything at all, I still don't see how let me continue reading. Maybe I missed something. Following deal special situations. Individual site using personal should be excluded, primarily directed to okay. However, sites that contain advertising such as banner ads or commercial evident considered commercial. Foreign sites. So the only thing I'm seeing right here are literally content creators that are like, oh hey kids, look at blah 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 blah, and they're pointing to something like pointing to a mobile game app that a kid should download, or telling a kid to go gamble on a CS:GO website. Those are scandals that the mobile game app's not a scandal, but there's lots of mobile game apps that advertise directly to children with mobile games apps that are personalized by the content creator. That is what a personalized as. When somebody says, and this place is sponsored by blah blah, that is a personalized ad for that thing. And if they are aware that kids are they're watching their video, and they use words to try to attract more kids using said personalized ad, again, now see, and the whole thing is again, I'm gonna go back to, that's why we need a login wall, because if there's a login wall, the only people that will even have access to visually see that information is people that claim to be over the age of 13. And again, let me go ahead and reiterate, because again, it's the most used argument, is that kids that will lie, again, if they lie, that is the fault. If they lie on their application, that is the fault of the parents and the child. or the parents, but not the content creator or the general audience platform. So again, the content creators won't need to worry about that at all. If it has, but again, even if a kid clicks into it, and a kid can click, 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 you have provided reasonable, like if YouTube can implement a count system, and they haven't yet. So right now we do need to worry about this. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ashkowski, that we do need to worry about this. But my whole point is that that's not that it's anything that anybody can see that as problems. As I can see almost every content, like most thumbnails I see today are somebody with a crazy reaction to a game or something like that. And in my mind, that's something that appeals to children more than it appeals to me. Really, if I see a thumbnail that's really beautifully crafted, and I see a sense of art direction with it or something like that, I'm far more likely to click on that than I am one with, you know. I don't even like seeing Mr. Beast's thumbnails 2 days in or something, you know. I don't even like seeing that because it seems it's, you know, I'm not I it's exaggerated. And even when I try those thumbnails, I don't necessarily really like them. What I end up doing for my own thumbnails is I just pull a picture directly from what is watching. I'm well aware, Ashkowski. I'm well aware that people will be personally sued by. Yeah, he mentions that in the conference. It is a part of the conference that he mentions. He says that content creators are reliable. He says that as part of the conference. We didn't need to go and look at that for that. He says this is all the information that we already had. We pretty much already knew from the conference again, which is again troubling. Yes, but changing the law is not the issue. Changing the law isn't going to change anything, because even if they change the law to include more things, how are you going to say that a kid is not going to click on something? How are you ever going to play Mario Maker again and comfortably say that if your video is open to the public, that anybody can watch, that a kid will never ever click on your video? I don't think you could reasonably say that. Not unless there's a login wall. I generally don't think anybody can. Yeah, it sucks, and it's a really hard thing to deal with. But again, we can't change the law, because if we change the law, that's saying, well, then it should be okay to talk to children under the age of 13 and be able to collect such information from them. Which I don't think that everybody should be okay. I would think that everybody should be okay. I'm well aware that I personally also can have problems here, and I'm going to make sure that my channel is legally okay. I'm not gonna let my channel get sued. No, I'm gonna take the legal actions for my channel to make sure everything that I can do is safe. What I will likely do is just mark all my videos as 18 plus. Literally every single video, and every video I do, I will mark as 18 plus until YouTube develops a new way to deal with the situation. I am confident, because I've read the laws and I've watched the conference, and it says specifically that if I do my own part, despite whether my thing attracts a child, if they cannot put information into my video, and they cannot watch my video, they cannot get ads, then they cannot do anything. And if you put them 18 plus, I will only get ad revenue from my members, anybody who chooses to stay members to me. But that's the thing, is that I don't even get ad revenue from ads. I maybe get $3 a year from ads. So whoop-de flip and do. I don't get ads, but I can still stay monetized and have my memberships. And, and then the only people that can watch me are people who claim to be over the age of 18. And if they're not, then that is that, and they're under the age, as long as they stay lying to me, then I can let them stay. And as soon as they break their law, I'll be forced to ban them in compliance with COPPA. But I mean, the same thing goes with Twitch. The same thing goes with anything else. I would say that what's going to happen is content creators are going to move over to Twitch, where they will just have things where they can't target kids. The advertisements might even be if they do personalized advertisements over on Twitch. I don't think so. I think the only advertisements that happen are just the ones that are pre-stream, and those are almost always contextual anyways. So there wouldn't be any personalized ads on Twitch. So Twitch might take over YouTube in the top platforming spot. But the thing is Ashkowski, if you mark it as 18 plus, you as the content creator, me as the content creator, YouTube will not take that marking of 18 plus off my video. That would be against their terms and conditions. Why would they break their own terms and conditions where I can then sue YouTube? That's silly. That's silly. If I marked a video as 18 plus, and then YouTube is like, no, I want to make this video where anybody can watch it, I don't care what. That's not going to happen, because YouTube can't do that. It's against their terms and conditions to change that kind of information. If I deem my content as 18 plus and there needs to be a login wall that says that the account needs to be 18 plus to make it, I cannot be sued. Under no reasonable law could I possibly be sued. Even if I am wrong in interpretations of various things, I still cannot be liable, nor could anybody. They cannot be liable if they take reasonable measures, and YouTube is not going to just randomly remove videos from 18 plus. And again, this is 18 plus. When it comes to the not 18 plus, sure, there's going to be problems for people. Yeah. But I'm just going to, again, if I just mark all my stuff as 18 plus, I don't have to worry. Other people are going to if they want to do this or not. YouTube is going to have a huge gap in this gray area. There's no denying that. There's no denying that people are going to either go full kids or full 18 plus. There's literally no denying that. People are going to make their choice. They're going to either leave YouTube, go full kids, or go 18 plus to stay on YouTube, instead of risking getting hit by the FTC. Because yeah, that is a real possibility. You're absolutely right. Any content creator can be sued. You're absolutely right. It might be blowing it out of proportion to think that somebody like me would get sued, because I'm not actually making any money. If you read that 42,000 figure more carefully, it says that the amount of money is actually determined on how much is made in revenue from the violation. We can actually go to see that in the actual piece of the actual. Which one was it? Was it the FAQ? My FAQ. Paul, Twitch is one of several platforms. Like it should be anyways. Twisted, and in my mind, I'm pretty sure that's going to be fine. Monetization doesn't stop for 18 plus. The ads do. You get limited ads. It doesn't say you get no ads, but it says you get limited ads because it's 18 plus, and that's the best you can do. During the conference, they mentioned that's how exactly Nintendo. And yeah, you're right, Paul. Maybe this is all a veiled attempt to knock down YouTube creators. That's not the point. The FTC is doing this to protect the children's privacy. Despite who benefits from this, it's still a wholesome law that deserves to be followed. Despite who benefits, who gets the thing of it. Right now, what is important is the protection of the children. That is what is important, not our own well-beings. We need to stop thinking about our own well-beings and think about the children's well-beings for this situation. Because a lot of content creators are not thinking about the children's well-beings. They're thinking about how this is personally affecting them. And think about how we can protect the children, then we can think about ways to help everybody else. Yeah, see, Twisted. Now, see, that's the thing. That's the thing. If they somehow change people that go 18 plus and then make them kid friendly, they're probably gonna get sued by a lot because they can't do that. They would be effectively getting people sued by the FTC by doing that. By doing that, they would effectively get people sued by the FTC because they would be doing that when people took the reasonable measures to go against it. So that in all that 100%, if you think about it 100% logically, if YouTube removes a setting that you put on your video that you deemed not safe for anybody under the age of 18, they're not going to randomly take that setting off just to piss you off. That's not how the law works. The law isn't out to get you. Restricted monetization, again, I'm not worried. You know, in my mind, when it comes to live streaming, you're not going to get much ad revenue anyways. Because you know what happens? When I look at channels that live stream and I think of them as good live streamers, I think of like Original 151. And his main revenue definitely comes from his memberships. He has nearly 200 Ultra Instinct members, is what he calls them, which are $50 a month. That is more money a month in just those members alone that essentially makes any ad revenue pointless. Any ad revenue on top of that is just extra money. So he could mark his stuff as 18 plus in essentially, and he would still be fine because he would still make money from members. Now, yeah, you're absolutely right. Anybody who makes their money completely off of ad revenue are gonna have a huge problem marking their stuff 18 plus, and it is a huge problem. That nobody's arguing that. And that's where YouTube needs to do more to help those creators in the middle. Because if they don't, then they're gonna lose a lot of creators, and a lot of creators are gonna lose their stuff. But again, getting angry with the FTC for just following a law that makes sense is the wrong way to go about it. Too young to watch you because you was your family members. Ah. Yep. A bit ago because you felt uncomfortable with having them there, right? Uploading stream backlogs and highlight. Now you can't because what you contains too many characters. Well, just mark it as 18 plus. I think what's going to happen is YouTube is going to realize a huge mistake and they're going to just do the login wall because that's the simplest solution I can think of. that they could do. Or as Ballin suggested, maybe they just put a button on every video that says I am over the age of 13. If they did that, again, that would be at the fault of the user and the or the fault of the parent if the user is violating that button agreement. If you and then it can't be the fault of the creator. So yeah, there's problems for the middle ground here, for sure, 100%. No doubt about it. Nobody's disputing that. It's gonna be it's really crappy, but we need to try to convince YouTube. And the problem I see mostly here is that content creators believe that it is not their fault. They see it as not their fault. They see it as the corporations and the government and YouTube and FTC as just out to get them, which is just not the case. It is just not the case to see the world like that. Is not the case to see everybody is out to get you. And just because somebody has a lot of money, that means that they think that they're better than you or something like that. There are bad people in power all over the place, but that doesn't make everything evil. See you later, Twisted. And indeed, the login wall is 15. They wouldn't be able to watch that if you did that. Well, Ashkowski, then you could tell them to just lie, if that's really the case, because it, like, I don't know what to say, except you can upload your Twitch. There are things that you can upload to your Twitch as Twitch clips as well, if that's really what you want as well. There are ways to upload to Twitch clips. And I agree, I want to post to YouTube too. Like, guys, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I want to be able to post games of just whatever the flip I want to. I want to be able to do this, but I understand wholeheartedly that we can't just blindly assume that kids are safe. We can't. And to say that kids are safe right now is a violation in information. It is misinformation that is misunderstood. It is information that is misunderstood. Because we can see the documents, the legal documents, they don't say, how dare content creators do this stuff, and we do that, and they say, and they're charging all the content creators. No, they're not. They didn't immediately go for all content creators and start charging them. They specifically stated that in the conference that they didn't want to go after the content creators, and they wanted to make this as easy on the content creating community as possible. But they still content creators are still at fault. Morgs is a channel that I hear nothing but bad things about, that is directed solely to children. Solely. I do not know a single person who watches Morgs that is over the age of 13. Not a single person. Everybody else just watches the memes. And that's what I'm talking about. No, Ashkowski, I'm not saying that there's no way to change it. I'm saying that when it can be changed, but what's to stop it in the future from being targeted differently? Like, there are ways that the change is not in the law. They're going to meet, and I don't see what changes they could. Maybe they could. Maybe they can think of some way that will release content up to content creators and then somehow not let, and also it be free to the public, but also kids not access it and not comment on it. Maybe YouTube can do, well, I'm trying to think of what just the FTC can do in changing the law. I'm trying to think of just revisions in the law that could be done that would make it where no content creator collects information. The only thing that they could amend is say that a username is not sufficient enough personal information. So if they amended the law to where they said a username alone is not sufficient enough information, then that might be a way for them to avoid this, because that's really where it comes down to, is the username and the ability to contact the child through a username. That's where the problem comes down to. So that's where they would need to change it. If we diagnose the issue, that's where the issue is specifically that and nothing else. Because, I mean, unless we're talking about personalized ads, which most channels don't have to deal with, because personalized ads are the ones where they're talking about a mobile gaming app and how it's really cool and how they can do all these things in the app, and it's coming from the content creator. That's what a personal ad is. Not just an ad that is or I mean, personal ads also that take in, like, YouTube has control over too, which is like, they took information about your age and whatnot, and then they tried to put in an ad in front of the video. That's also, but that's not the content creator's responsibility. YouTube can't do that anymore either. And then, so they're only allowed to put contextual ads, which are ads that are generally based about the video in the made for kids section. Eslo, Paul is in a point where he doesn't want to listen. I'm trying to get Paul to listen and to not be upset with corporations and the government. I've been trying, and Paul, you just don't want to listen to me. I can't help you not hate something. I can't help you do that. And if you go into looking at these laws or looking at the conference or looking at anything with a judgment prior to actually having all the information, you cannot ever make an informed decision on the subject. Would play creator marked for not for kids. If it's marked for not for kids, though, the thing, again, Ashkowski, the thing is, again, the kids have access to those. The things marked not for kids, yeah, they're still going to be personalized. Yeah, what's the problem? Even if they could be then personalized to kids under the age of 12 if they're not watching it. That's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to make it where kids can't watch it, and that is a problem. You're right. Nobody, again, for like the 10th time, nobody's arguing that. Nobody is arguing that content creators themselves will get sued for playing various games and having very, very many things that are nothing related to children only. Nobody's arguing that. Indeed, it's a problem, and yes, it is gonna happen, and we need to have a way to solve it for creators. But the only way we as creators can do anything about it is we can try to change the law, but the only diagnosable issue that content creators that we have that is in the law, is even prescribed in the law, because we are not gathering personal information, like anything other than a username. And there's a whole list of personal information on there. The only thing that we gather is a username. And that is one of those things that is on that list that we cannot grab. So we do not have the tools to deal with the situation. The only tool we do have is to mark our content as 18 plus. And YouTube is not going to arbitrarily unmark a content as not 18 plus, because then they would be in violation of their own terms and conditions and can be sued easily by a content creator. Think about the legal complications that would happen if I marked my video as 18 plus. YouTube decides that that video should be seen by all. And in my mind, I didn't think so. And then YouTube removes that. Then FTC, and then I get sued by FTC because the video was deemed by them that it was indeed 18 plus. Then the FTC supersedes YouTube. Therefore, I was right, and YouTube gets sued. And I win the case, and I can make millions. Well, that's the thing. And Ashkowski, again, the problem here is for YouTube to implement changes here. Is to implement changes. The COPPA, we looked at the law. Tell me what part of this law can change that will make it, other than like maybe if they say that just an online, where is it, when it comes to personal information, if only this stuff right here, if only articles P3 and P4 were removed, online contact information or a screen or username where it functions as the same manner as online contact information. So this right here says multiple things right in it. And again, yeah, before people bring it up, yeah, other companies are probably in violation of this too. That does not make it legal. Just because other companies are also breaking the same law does not mean that they are not subject to it. That is another argument brought up tonight, that YouTube's breaking the law and that everybody's breaking. That just because multiple people are breaking it does not make it okay. That is not an argument to use. So this is the only part as diagnosing the issue. That's a court order. Court orders are used as law. Ashkowski. Court orders in the court of law are used in you hear it all the time. When you talk, if you were even on TV and things, they'd say blah v blah. Those are judgments which are used in law in all cases. This we can use as we can reference this as a legal document in the court of law. Indeed. Court orders set precedents. Thank you, Sir Boromir. Indeed they do. Can't watch your for a member, subscriber, member. Again, Ashkowski, I understand that you hate how this is affecting people as people and how it affects everybody and the way that YouTube has rules set up. But you must understand, this is about more than us. This is more than we. This is about more than just content creators. This is more than us as people. We have to think as the greater whole. We have to think of the greater community. We have to think of the future and how to benefit everybody as best as we can, despite what sacrifices we have to make. Even I might have to lose my channel in this whole process. I might have to compromise my entire channel to this process. And I might get sued in the process of it. And I still think that my actions here and that understanding this law, I still think this is more than okay. I think that they are doing the right thing. This law is good. This law is important. this law doesn't necessarily need to change. Now, I don't know how they can allow how they can allow a user to be under the age of 13, use a contact information, and not type, and not have a chance to say things. Children say stupid things. Children give out private information through chats all the time that they're not supposed to. Is it taking away the ability of kids? I think that, yeah, it's taking their ability away to give their first and last name, or to give out their phone number, because they just don't know any better. That doesn't mean that the law needs to change. It sucks. But also 13 plus, Hidden Code Gamer. That's what I think needs to happen, is they need to have a filter. And that's the only way they can be solved. Really. I mean, I don't see, and again, I don't see how changing, I see no way of how changing the law, like so many content creators do, because they just don't understand that the law is good. As he said in the conference, that anybody who looks at this law can agree that it is solid. He doesn't use those words, but the idea is still the same. Is that anybody who reads this law and understands it objectively is like, well, this just makes sense. And it is us as content creators who are upset that we're losing our platform, our ability to express ourselves in any way we want. We are being limited by the law. That is true. But it's for the sake of helping more children remain safe. It sucks. Yeah. But at least we can go and say that we helped make more people safe. Because you could be saving, this law could save a few kids from getting from releasing their personal information. If not hundreds and thousands of releasing personal information. And that would be good. In my mind, I don't see how that's a problem. By claiming it's a problem in some way is itself misguided. Because it can't be a problem. I can verifiably witness time and time again where children have put information, too much information, in areas that they should not have. I've had to talk to kids. I've seen kids get talking to. I have seen kids get sent home from school, in a public school, because they were giving too much information about themselves. They were giving too much information to the public. I've seen kids kicked off of websites because they were giving too much information, and they should. And I mean, when you see a phone number in a chat, what do you do? Even if it's not a child, what do? You delete it. You delete it as soon as possible, and you tell that person, please do not post that. Do you know what the primary people that do that are? People that are under the age of 13. Because they just don't know any better. It's not somebody, or if they're over the age of 13, it's not their number. Tash, indeed. Indeed, Tash. You know, you must have looked at this law up and down, left and right, forward and backward, upside down, backwards, flipped on your side, doing gymnastics. Spit those facts. We're coming up on the end of this conversation, and I was just trying to get the facts out through legal precedents, through the conference that was given by the FTC and the legal document, the court order of the people of the state v. Google and YouTube, and the court order from this, and trying to show that YouTubers in general are angry at the wrong thing. YouTubers in general are upset at the FTC and trying to see the FTC is wrong. But the FTC is just in the right here, and YouTube and content creators unfortunately need to make the change. And I think that YouTube can do a lot in this endeavor, because it's gonna force a lot of YouTube content creators to go down non-monetary paths, and doing that will make them leave the platform. And because they leave the platform, YouTube will lose credibility, will lose its viewers, and it will probably lead credence to other platforms to grow larger, like Mixer, for example, who probably has a COPPA compliant account system in place, as does Twitch. These are all things that YouTube needs to take into account. Ashkowski, morality can never take precedence over law. Never. Because what is moral to one person is not moral to another. Subjective experience cannot be determined by law. Morality is one thing. When it takes into account, morality is by default taken into account when all parties are justified. So it is by default, morality is taken, this by default takes into account morality, because it was voted on by people. I would imagine that it came in through people, or I mean, not this, but well, yeah, technically it's through the people, because it's Federal Trade Commission and then people of the state. So it's the Attorney General. I mean, not the Attorney General. It's the what is the prosecutor that prosecutes for the people? Well, no, Ashkowski. That's the thing, Ashkowski. If you don't mark your stuff as 18 plus and YouTube deems them as kid friendly, then they're going to mark them as kid friendly, and then you lose comments and ratings on it. That's it. You don't get fined for that. That's not what you would get fined for. Enforce not for kids videos to be publicly available. Exactly. Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that not for kids videos are publicly available. If that was just not the case, then all problems with COPPA violations go out the window. Deal with COPPA, shiz. Could force a way to keep younger off the site and fence them off. Yeah, exactly. And Sir Boromir, that would 100% fix things. Yeah, that's essentially a login wall. That that would essentially save everybody trouble. If they just put in a login wall that forced the liability onto the user and or parent of the user, then a content creator can never, ever, ever be held liable again in a COPPA case, unless a commenter in their video or live stream says that they already violated the one law and that they are under the age of 13 for the next law. So yeah, my argument is that the law does not need to change. It's worded, and this seems pretty solid to me. It protects children. Maybe not morally for everybody. Maybe it's not the best choice for everybody. A lot of people are going to be upset because they're losing things, and they're losing one thing or another. But the law makes sense. It makes ethical sense, and it makes legal sense, and it makes logical sense. YouTube has not done enough to inform their creators. That is also true, given to us by the FTC conference as well. YouTube has to do more, and has to now do annual trainings of people that work directly for YouTube. And there may be training for content creators annually as well. That every content creator has to click and sign in their new privacy policy. So YouTube is going to have to do things. I don't see how that's the case. And if that's the case, Ashkowski, then I'd have to say that I disagree with Democrats on this, and that they didn't do their due diligence, because this in my mind is an open. I don't see, again, Ashkowski, tell me how it is okay for you to talk to a child under the age of 13, and it's not okay for some creep to do the same. How is that okay? How is it okay for you to do that, and then somebody else to come along and say, I want to do that. I'm not going to do anything bad, when we know that that's not the case? How can you say that comfortably, that nobody in the world nobody in the USA will treat a child like in ways they shouldn't be treated because they have contact with them? How can you confidently say that? I can't. Well, no, it's not okay for them to limit that access, Ashkowski. And that's a problem with YouTube. That's a problem with YouTube. We can't control what kids are going to click on. Again, as stated earlier, unfortunately, kids are going to click on literally anything. There's no way that we as content creators can make any form of video or content at all that is not in some way going to make a kid want to click on it. I agree that, yeah, we're all screwed in that gray category. Nobody's going to be able to post there because pretty much anything could be regarded as kid stuff. It sucks. But the problem, again, is not with the law. It's not with the law the law is not broken. The law is good. The law is solid. What needs to happen is on the part of YouTube. That's the only thing that can happen. That's the only I don't see how the law is a problem. I don't. I mean, I'm okay with kids not being contacted. I'm honestly okay with that. I am 100% okay with kids under the age of 13 not being contacted. That, as far as I can read, that is literally the law. Is everything they can do to keep a child from being contacted. I see no problem with that at all. As part of the settlement, but again, they did not tell specific things of how YouTube to deal with the situation. As stated in the conference, they told YouTube to deal with it in whatever way they thought necessary. YouTube decided an algorithm. The FTC stated that they didn't think an algorithm would be sufficient, which it probably won't be. Again, The FTC is not. I can't see what the thing. We can do it by contacting YouTube to do it. Yes, if we do it as content creators. Work theoretically need convey policy implementation more to clearly lay. Exactly. The practical component task, you're absolutely right. Is that there is a space there. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous for us content creators, and that it really sucks. But we are going to have to reach out to YouTube to do that. All these content creators, my point is that there's nothing wrong with the law. There's really nothing wrong with the law with this judgment. I don't see that. Until you can say how it's okay for the issues with the 13, well then again, that again is not something that can be determined by this. The only way that we can do that for sure is put a login wall, which is not up to the FTC. It's up to YouTube to do that. Did I see Aaron's tweets? No, what about him? He explained it pretty well. Mislabeling. It's gonna happen though. It's gonna happen, Ashkowski. Everything can be mislabeled. I understand that, and there's no arguing that. Again, I've been saying clearly, as clear as I can, I agree with you. And bringing up the same point isn't gonna help me agree with you more. I think you want me to get really, really upset about this and really angry and throw things and say that it's bad and it's wrong, but I don't think it's wrong. I think that is the smart decision. I think it is just the way it needs to be to protect the most people. That is, I cannot see the law as what's wrong here. Yes, there is stuff wrong. And yes, it's going to hurt content creators. And yes, they can mark things that are not remotely kid-friendly as kid-friendly. Because mature-rated games still attract kids. I understand this. But we can't do anything about that. They're gonna see it anyways. We can't do anything about that. They can make it where less content is gonna be due, but there will always be somebody else in power. There will always be somebody in power trying to belittle more people. You think that they're out to get you? Well, stop them from being out to get you. If YouTube was to put in a login wall, then that voids every content creator on the platform of responsibility. That voids YouTube as a responsibility. Just by putting that. It sucks for what's happening right now. Yes, I agree, nobody's arguing that. But there's not anything we can do about it. And telling the FTC to change it, yeah, they might clear up the terms. And they might say if something has like a badge that says mature rated content, it might be okay. But somebody else is going to come along and say it's not okay. And we have to just think about those times as well. And again, Ashkowski, we've been the reason why they would sue the content creators is because, again, YouTube is a general audience platform. You don't sue Twitter for people that post to Twitter. You don't sue Facebook for people that post to Facebook. You don't sue YouTube for people that post to YouTube. I don't see the problem with that either, because YouTube is not at fault either. They can take measures to try to make sure that content is appropriately put on their website, but it is a general audience website, meaning that they don't decide what videos are posted by its content creators. That would defeat the purpose of the website. If they'd fix it, well, I'm trying to understand where the problems are, because right now Ashkowski is saying that they would like for their content to be viewed by 13 to 17-year-olds old, which I agree. I'm well aware of that, Ashkowski. I'm going to read your comment out loud, and I'm going to confirm that I am aware of that. You said, COPPA is not targeting kids' content. It's targeting any content that contains cartoons, animations, vibrant colors, etc. I verbally acknowledge that I read that, and I verbally acknowledge that I understand, and that I verbally acknowledge that that is okay. Because kids will click on it. And because kids will click on it, any kid, despite their age, because it is a free and open platform, will click on that. I can also verbally say that you said, I do not agree with the court ruling. I disagree with COPPA. Again, I can understand that you don't want that, but how is contacting any, how is, like, again, the court rule, in this court ruling, it says that same thing. Like, again, the court ruling is part of COPPA. It is part of COPPA as soon as it was put into case. All of these are COPPA. All of these are part of COPPA, and their rulings are all help judge the next rulings. I posted the Twitter COPPA link in question and hashtag question for kink. If they do nothing, they won't be liable. If they put a login wall, gets through, you get sued. You put it off on YouTube. Yeah, exactly, Sir Boromir. Yeah, that's what the whole point is, though. Is that we are trying to it's a shitty situation for us content creators who want to have that age range of 13 to 17-year-olds. I'm one of those. I don't mind having them, honestly. But that doesn't mean that we should change how the law is being done. I think that is heavily specifically for it's heavily just to help children keep their privacy. I mistyped it, I guess. Where's my... Oh, there it is. And for a limited period of stream backlogs. Well, no. You can actually post clips. You can post... Yeah, you can, Ash. It's really good. Highly recommend a read. As long as... Well, I'm pretty well thoroughly, I believe... informed on this. I mean, I can show you all my research. If, like, there's the FAQ, here's Google Documents, here's a statement on a different case, here's a statement on yet a different case. I have my research, I have my due diligence, and it all comes from the FTC and or YouTube. But YouTube is not giving enough information to its content creators at all. So, and that's really a problem. I'm pretty sure I understand it well. I mean, I will always take more information. But anything I take that is not from the FTC and is not a legal document and is not from YouTube, I cannot take as fact. It ain't a new law. Exactly. It's been here forever. It's just that content creators have been violating the law for years. Like it's not new. It's been people have been violating the law for many years now, and just taking issue that they're now violating the law, and now and because they know about it, they have a problem with it. Does not mean that they didn't violate a law that was already in place. Yeah, you can upload to Twitch, indeed. Well, yeah, but Ashkowski, there you can indeed upload edited videos to Twitch. You have that ability for sure. It's just not a. It's not a. Yeah, it's not a big platform. Twitch, but maybe YouTube will die. Maybe YouTube will no longer become the biggest platform. Maybe YouTube is gonna get wrecked hardcore because all of its content creators are gonna leave for like Twitch or Mixer or Facebook, and then those will become the primary viewing platforms for video from then on, and YouTube will have lost its reign. I don't think YouTube's gonna do that. It might happen to them, but I don't think YouTube's gonna let that happen. I think that they will, once they start losing people on a massive scale, they're gonna make sweeping changes that are gonna save a few people left on the platform. And then, since YouTube is so big and people know YouTube so much, then people are still going to be doing things on YouTube at that point. DLive is another one. Laws are open to interpretation. No one is above the law. The rule of law interpretation is open. Yeah, exactly. But perhaps to an extent. Yeah, to an extent. But my point is that this one, you can't really bend the rule of law. And if you try to, in this case, in the case of COPPA, it's trying to talk to kids that are under the age of 13 over the internet without parents' consent. That is just the base of the law. So by any definition, by literally any definition of that, that is not okay. To me, that's not okay. I don't care how you define that. No matter how you define that, I can't be okay with that. Well, see, this is a thing, though. I see what you're saying. But how the wording is things still can be taken as for kids only in this wording. It's Tash for sure. So the thing is that this can be very helpful for us. Is this guy from YouTube? No, he's not from YouTube. Yeah, see, he's not a lawyer, not legal advice, but he makes sense. He makes sense, and this is probably kind of how it will. This is kind of how it will play out. Probably, this is how YouTube probably wants it to play out. Right here, I still don't think it's gonna work because some content creators will still get misidentified, and then if those content creators get sued, that's gonna scare a lot of people off the platform. Still making YouTube forced to make sweeping changes. So I mean, yeah, it's this is how it's probably going to work, and how I think YouTube wants it to work like this, and so that they can remain as so that their creators can remain as open to the public as possible. But even so, this is gonna not necessarily work. I'm not gonna actually let my channel be subject to this. I'm gonna mark all my stuff as 18 plus and put it behind that login wall until we see more but before we see more on the things. Yeah, we need to deal with the gray area, really. Is really what we need to do. Okay. So, is someone in trouble? the thing we need to take away today is that the FTC is in no way at fault here. I don't think the FTC's law is the problem. There's a lot of content creators that are trying to reach out to the FTC and try to get the FTC to change the law and all that, but I do think that that will mostly end in a veil, because the main context of the law is to not have children under the age of 13 comment on your video. That is literally what the whole basis of the law, essentially, for in relation to us. So by trying to change the law, you're just trying to get be able to contact them. You're trying to make it where you can contact children under the age of 13, which again, I can't be on board with that. I am strictly on the board of parents should have that decision whether their child under the age of 13 has contact with people that are you don't know, because people are creepy. And when it comes to the other problems, it's not a problem of the FTC to the FTC might regard lots of things that are not that are not for kids, meant for kids, as kid friendly, and might mark them as such. But that is a problem not for the FTC to deal with. That is a problem for YouTube and YouTube content creators too. So does disabling comments on your videos protect you? Well, at that point, Sir Boromir, if you're going to disable comments on your video anyways, you might as well just mark your video made for kids at that point, because that's all that they're going to do. That's pretty much all they're going to do is mark your video not for and you'll get contextual ads instead of personalized ads. And personalized ads for YouTube means like ads that pulled information from computers and whatnot. And personalized ads for a content creator means like picking up their phone and telling their audience that they playing this brand new game that their audience should go all check out because it's super cool, new, fun thing. You know this wouldn't work on a stream. Well, yeah. Well, you could disable contents, but the good thing is the setting 18 plus is easily revertible when the situation changes. Yeah, and I think there will be legal precedents put in place to fill in that gray area, and we need to implore YouTube to make that change, because we cannot possibly be in control of who watches our content when it's freely accessible to anybody. Because one could argue that a child will click into free videos no matter what website they are on, no matter where on the internet they are. They can always click into it. Okay, guys. I believe we've fully covered many topics, and we've used much of this, and I feel pretty confident that I've gotten the facts out. The facts are everything that we have gotten from FTC directly, everything we have gotten from the court mandated orders and the statements made by the FTC. This is our information, our legal advice in dealing with this situation, and this is where we get our facts, because again, many YouTubers have a lot of speculation and what ifs and something that could happen or might happen based on wording that is pure speculation. We do not know what will happen to content creators. We do not know what will happen to videos. We do not know how all of this will work out because it's not been told to us. So anything on what might happen, good or bad, is pure speculation. The facts do not tell us what is going to happen for sure. Until then, we have to do what we can to make sure that we are compliant with the law. It may suck. It may be terrible. It may not be fun to have to comply with the law, but we have to as a society of laws. And it is important to not only be willing to follow the law, but be happy to follow the law. Because without our laws, without our government, without all of this, everybody would just be fighting over their next meal. They would be attacking each other because they looked at each other funny. There would be mayhem and chaos, and there would be no progression of human society because nobody would work together. We need laws, we need rules, we need regulations to keep people safe. Anywho, let us now go and call it there. If you guys didn't get enough of me streaming, I think I'm going to go ahead and head over on to Twitch and go ahead and do some Mario Maker 2. I've been playing some Ryukar levels. They're pretty fun. And we won't be in violation of any COPPA things over there, so that's a plus. Because I set up my Twitch earlier today to not allow people that have not verified their email address. So therefore, if they have not verified their email address for an account that says that they are over the age of 13, they cannot join in. So, GG. Thank you guys for joining me, and I hope that everybody is more informed and less scared than they were prior to coming in here, because everybody is scared. Every content creator is scared, and they're scared and they're fearing for their channels, as they should, because there's problems here. But also understand that content creators are blowing this out of proportion, and they're speculating, and they're making you fear the worst as they want to get more views on their channels. They're like, you don't kid yourselves. These viewers, these channels that are making all these videos to and saying all these worse things, they're making money off of their videos still. I'm pretty sure that they're gonna be making money off their videos, and some of these videos of these channels, this is gonna be some of their biggest these are gonna be their biggest ticket videos yet, because it has to do with stuff that is so important. It won't be, as Stevie J pointed it out to me earlier in my stream. In my Discord. He's like, well, Kink, this guy can reach 80,000 people. And then I'm all like, but if he was a critical thinker, he would say to look at the information. He's like, well, at least he can reach more people, and you'll at least have us 20 people watching you. And he's right. There are less people here. There's less in it for me. It's not about me, though. It's about spreading the truth. It's about understanding information and how to get it properly. Because listening to a content creator or tell you something is not evidence. No matter how accurate they are. They could literally say this almost word for word, but it still is not this directly. It is not the legal document if it comes from a content creator or anybody. It is not fact when it comes to speculation. when it comes to speculation of things that can happen or might happen or how they could happen, is none of that is fact. And that is all I hear from content creators generally, is how are they affected, and how this sucks for them, and how this FTC rule is terrible, and not understanding the principle of it all, because they just listened to a content creator who said it was bad, who said it was terrible, who explained these things in really terrible ways. You know who also does that? Fox News. Donald Trump. The Republican Party in the impeachment hearings. Flat earthers. These are people that all use the same, that use information of hearsay and rumors by other people as empirical evidence, as evidence that can be verified by everybody. That is not the case. When it comes to earlier today in impeachment hearings, saying when Ambassador Sondland specifically said that there indeed was quid pro quo, they still would deny it. And they say it's a farce and there's no evidence. When there's all the evidence. Lying. It's ridiculous to see. And it's because the American people, and people as a whole around the world, just don't care enough. They don't care enough outside what is going on in their worlds. They don't care if it affects somebody else in a negative way. YouTube creators don't care if kids' data and a child's protection matters. They would care if they really understood, but they don't understand, so they don't care. And that's the problem, is that it's not that the information they're absorbing doesn't have enough pizzazz. It doesn't keep their interest. It doesn't make them feel good. Not all the things in the world will make people feel good. Sometimes you have to just be real. People of Eslo, nobody is arguing that people in power can often be misleading and often be distrustful. There's no arguing that. Indeed, they can. The government system itself, the government itself is not bad. Those in control of it can try to sway the rule of law in their way, in their direction, but the laws are still there. It is how we can impeach Trump, no matter how much he tries to block the investigation, or Republicans can, because we have law. Because if we didn't have the law, Trump would get away scot-free, and the American people would know nothing. I would likely know nothing if we didn't have the rule of law, because Trump would be a dictator. And he would keep all information. The only information, if he had a choice, would be information from Fox News. We would all be under one Fox News if he could have it that way. And Fox News paints a portrayal that everything is okay, and then Trump has done nothing wrong, and gaslighting its viewers over and over and over again, and they're just willing to accept it. They're willing to accept him doing terrible things as well, which we all have to accept, which they have to accept, that they accept him doing terrible things. He does terrible things, and then they say, we don't care, or what does it matter? And then the other side, of course, says it does matter, because it's a terrible thing to do. So how does that make them look? The shameless. They can't feel shame is a problem. Is they don't feel shame in what they're doing. Shame and humiliation are powerful motivators. Possibly the most powerful motivators out there. Unless the people that need to feel them don't. Trump has no shame. His lack of shame and his overconfidence makes a lot of people believe him. And a lot of people like him. Because they want to believe that he's being good to them. All of this matters, and it's very hard for me to see content creators on YouTube blowing out the wrong side of this argument, blowing out the side of saying that the FTC needs to change something when it's us as the content creators and us as content creators to help YouTube know to change these things. YouTube is gonna make mistakes further. They're a company. But if we want to have an open platform, then we need to make some compromises for the safety of others, whether or not it affects us negatively. Whether it affects you negatively should be the last thing on your mind. And if it does, and if all it matters is how this is affecting you negatively, or your friends negatively, then think about what that means. Because the law is there to protect people. And by trying to argue against it is trying to say that the law shouldn't protect these individuals from themselves. Because they don't know any better, usually. And to say that kids know better, under the age of 13, know better for themselves is also ridiculous. Because, again, we have seen plenty of times kids give out way too much personal information because they're under the age of 13 and just don't know any better. They think it's all fine and dandy. Every argument that has been provided today against the FTC ruling does not make legal or logical sense to me, and rather implies changes necessary to be applied to YouTube and the way that content creators go about creating their content. I do not see a way that the FTC can change the law in where children would be okay. Because even if they were, children we do not know will click on things they're not meant to, and therefore will violate the contract. Will violate the act. It is indeed important information. This stream will be up on, be left on YouTube, and I hope that even if not a lot of people watch it, even if it's just us, that somehow what was said here today resonates through the YouTube community. And that we do our part to help YouTube know that we need to change things out. We need to change other things to save our creators. Because if we don't, a lot of creators are going to get hurt. Lots. And lots are going to lose their livelihoods with this. But let me reiterate one more time that it is not a law that is thrown on creators all of a sudden. This law has been in effect since 1998. This is not something that creators have just been notified of. Or maybe even if they were just notified of it, it's not like this is something that might just happen. It's just thrown at creators or to attack creators. It is just a law to protect people. I hope so, Eslo. I hope so. Okay. How about we go do a raid, guys? We go do an FTC raid. We won't do an FTC raid. That would probably freak people out. If you said the words hashtag FTC raid, it would probably freak them out on YouTube. They'd be like, no, what? Let's go and raid Miss Snapclick Cat, guys. A not family-friendly content creator who I am sure we will eventually see her making her content 18 plus as well. Right on.
Cries nostalgia.
You guys.
Wait, I want to go. I think
Thanks for sticking with me, and thanks for listening, and most importantly, thanks to those of you who take a breather. Not on this stream. We'll see. We'll do that over on Twitch. This one's going up onto YouTube. I'm not going to take this one down, and I want people to look at this video as objectively as possible. If I take a breather, people will not look at this video objectively. They will think I'm just, not thinking clearly. And that it's important that people know that I'm thinking as critically as I can about this subject.
I'm sorry. That's it. I have to continue editing. I'm sorry. Before I sleep. Another fantastic stream. We did good though. We went to the water temple.
Oh, you mean cat take a breather? Yeah, we could do it. We could do a take a breather.
It just started. Let's see, how long have I been streaming for though? Thank you guys. 2 hours. Almost 3 hours.
She's about to end her stream. Rip. She's right about to flip in. She's right about to raid. Well, we can't raid her then. Let's go raid who she's raiding.
Alrighty then. Let's see who we gonna raid tonight.
Let's go raid who she's raiding, and then we're gonna do like a follow up. We were gonna raid SCK raid. Let's do that. Hold on. Hashtag we were gonna raid SCK, but now you raid. There you go.
Raid. I mean, we can raid. Who do we raid? It's kind of a good amount of people here.
Yeah. Well, we know she's not gonna come here. That would be silly.
Sorry.
This has nothing to do with anything to do with games.
Okay, I decided. We're raiding Chadster.
Okay, Chadley it is. Chadley.
Just give me a second here. Don't early raid. Chill your horses. Why is it... Okay, there you go. Okay. Sorry. I was looking for a raid target. Okay. If you like what you saw, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and the like button and all the things and all the stuff and all the things. Buenas noches.
All right.
Good to see you again.
A double raid. Yeah, we're gonna do that raid tag. We were gonna raid SCK, but now you. And then his name is Chadley. Hold on, we gotta wait for her raid to just start off, and then we'll go. We gotta wait for a few of her people to go in there, and then we can go. It's a raid within a raid. It's a stream within a stream within a stream, guys. Streamception to the max. Okay, so. Okay, let's go do a raid over to Chadley. Here's the link, guys. Go on over there. And do we were gonna raid SCK raid.
Wait, did I put, yeah, I did. Okay. Readers, be sure to like,
It'll just probably be us few, but it'll be hilarious.
Thank you everyone who raided.
It'll be absolutely hilarious. Uh-oh.
joining me tonight again. Thank you
So
so
this
much
is
for the
perfect.
61
Okay.
likes.
Who's gonna lead this? Who's gonna lead this? I'll join in. I'll join in right after you.
Have a lovely sleep and all the things.
I hope I didn't miss anybody.
Oh, there we go. Sir Boromir first.
I can't see when I see. Until next time, everybody. Love you guys. Bye.
Sir Boromir, welcome. And Kink. Oh wait, is it who? Okay, so who's raiding me now? We were gonna raid Cat, and now you raid. So who's raiding me? Is it Kink?
Thank you, Freya.
Dorkosaurus, how's it
You
going?
guys
It's
are
been
hilarious.
quite a while. Freya, how's it going?
Boro,
It's a double raid, but who's the
Boromir,
person that
you're good. Is your second
Cat raided me? And I think
raider.
Oh, Boromir. Okay, so Sir Boromir. Wait. Was it Kink? Yes, Kink is my
That's
second
hilarious.
raider. Thank you, Kink. Thank you. It's so confusing. I'm doing well, Dorkosaurus, but it's been forever since
Thank you
I've
guys
seen
so much
you.
for
I
raiding.
hope all is well with you.
Thanks for
Alpine,
raiding,
welcome to the stream.
guys.
Thanks for coming in on.
You guys are hilarious. That was funny. GG's. Not the cat raid. Yeah, we were gonna raid cat. Anywho, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for discussing this vastly important topic with me. My word, is it important? Who knows? You might just see another raid here where I do maybe the impeachment hearings and we talk about that because it is important. Unbelievably important. But guys, until later tonight on Twitch, we'll do some Mario Maker if I'm up for it. I might not. And if I am good, I will see you guys tomorrow or later tonight. We'll see. Thanks so much, guys. And thank you to all these people who are still my members. I recently updated this, so this is all the current members, which is much less than it used to be. So thank you to all those people who are still my members of this channel. And thank you for believing me. I'll always believe in you. I'll see you guys soon. Until then, stay amazing and to the freaking live.